Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to On Point. This episode is with Jared from Hunt League, and we talk about the new app that he's just starting to come out with, and actually gets me pretty excited to start my own league and be able to compete with my friends and other content creators, and we're going to try and put something together here very soon. So, long episode, but there's a lot of details here, and then after we kind of get the idea of competing with within my own league, we start talking about that, and there's actually an opportunity for you guys to follow along. So be sure to listen to the whole episode in its entirety. There's a lot of information here, but there's some really cool stuff towards the end. And as always, guys, I appreciate you for listening. And be sure in the end, if you're interested, to go to Hunt League and follow. I'm going to call it the Content Creators League. And so when you go on there, hopefully by then we have it created and you can go and follow along with us and even compete with us. So that's just getting a little ahead, but just wanted to throw that out there. And as always, guys, appreciate you for listening. I will see you in the end. Goodbye. Let's just start this thing with your elevator sales pitch. This is the second time we've done this now because I fucked up. So, and if you want to cuss on the podcast, it is not PG-13. It's explicit. So, so my bad. I'm sorry. I messed up. So go ahead and tell us again. Give us your bio real quick.
Okay. My name is Jared Newman, founder of the Hunt League mobile app. And I kind of got into hunting several years ago, back in 2007. I moved to Colorado in 2005, had a college buddy who grew up hunting that kind of asked me to come on his first elk hunt. I had no clue what I was doing. I grew up in Oklahoma fishing, and that was really my passion. I loved fly fishing, and you might even see some fly fishing stuff in the app right now. But I came out, and I remember like going on my first couple elk hunts, and all I wanted to do was bring my fly rod because, like, man, we're gonna find all these little backcountry little lakes and places that never get fished. And I was like, yeah, we'll hunt in the morning, hunt in the evening, but I can fish all day. After 2 years of that, my buddy kept like, why are you even bringing that stuff? What are you doing? All of a sudden, the elk bug hit me, and when it hit me hard. Yeah. And I think in 2015 is kind of the year where we kind of had our whole elk camp group, and we had a really incredible year that year. And we came back and we're all like sharing the stories of it and talking about, well, who's the better hunter and who did what. And we kind of, at that dinner, we kind of kicked around the idea of like, man, we need something that tracks all these like stories and activities and stuff. So we actually have a way to like definitively compare with each other, like who had the best season, what was, what's the real story, and all the things too that you just forget during a hunt. Right. So, that kind of stuff started happening. Like that conversation happened in 2015. And for about 2 years, I kept like that conversation kept replaying in my mind and the ideas for what I would want. And I kind of kept waiting. I was like, man, I hope like Onyx or somebody's going to like start allowing us to do this or this. And I kind of kept waiting for another app. I tested a bunch of other hunting apps and journals and whatnot, and nothing did exactly what I was looking for it to do. And after sitting on it for about 2 years, it was kind of like one of those deals like, I'm just going to build it. Like, I don't know what that means. I don't know how to build an app. I have no clue what I'm doing. I'm in completely over my head. But I was like, I'm going to build what I want as a hunting app. And that's basically what Hunt League is now. And I'm super excited about what it will become.
So do you have any, are you a programmer at all? Do you have any experience programming or creating any type of digital platforms or anything like that?
No, here's the scary part of it. Gets real scary fast. I've done most of the design work. I had a guy that was a guy that I had worked with down, about an hour south of me. He was a youth pastor down in Pueblo, and I was doing like this ministry to like young kids. And I went down and did this like man time program down in Pueblo, and met this guy, and he did a little bit of like, he designed a t-shirt for us that summer. And I was like, man, could you help me like come up with some design stuff? And so this guy, Brandon, kind of helped make some initial design and created kind of the wireframes and what it could kind of look like, and gave me the hex colors, because I am colorblind. So But I have since learned Photoshop, built all the wireframes, all of that, but I don't have any programming background. I do a lot of analytics and numbers and stuff with like databases and spreadsheets. So I'm pretty good on that side, but I've actually never done any programming on the app. From concept, I just started meeting with different programmers and app developers, and have kind of hired a team of app developers that have kind of helped me get to where I'm at now. Android was supposed to be out earlier this year.
Mm-hmm.
And we just kind of kept missing our marks with the developer I was working with, and had some setbacks, COVID, personal stuff, moving, a lot of different things were happening. And ultimately, like, just had to kind of recently make a change with what I'm doing with Android. So I'm kind of going back to the drawing board as far as like how I'm going to get that developed. And I'm bummed because I lost a little bit of time and money.
Yeah.
If I could go back to 2015, I would teach myself how to program.
Right. Or the hashtag learn to code.
Oh my gosh. I have spent so much time, so much money. And I'll give these instructions, and then I get stuff back, and I'm like, no, it's not quite lining up with my vision of what, and like, so there's so much back and forth. And I wish, like, it's like, man, if I would have taken this on just internally, but I didn't really know what I was getting into when I started it. The idea was much simpler when I started than what it is today. But what it is today, it's just one of those things where, like, every night when you're sitting there in bed, you're dreaming about, like, oh my gosh, what if it did this? And what if it did this?
Yeah.
So, and I'm not really trying to recreate the wheel. Like, I'm not really trying to recreate what's out there with other hunting apps. I'm not, like, some people kind of like want to do the comparison thing of like, oh, does it do this like this app, or does it do this like this app? And I'm like, no, like, if you want it to do that, just use that app. Because, I'm not really going to take on onX with their landowner boundaries and map layers and all that. It's like, no, do that in onX.
Well,
it's way better than what I'm building.
I'll tell you, man, those kind of apps, like they're almost like a stable anymore, like onX or Basemap, whatever you use. I use onX. All my friends use onX, therefore I use onX too. But
I use both.
Do you?
Yeah, because I'm not onX Elite. I just use the onX subscription for Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't necessarily know if it's good to say like your preferences of this or that in those two worlds. But then I do occasionally travel out of state to hunt. Like, I started my year in Arizona this year. I'll probably do some hunting in Oklahoma, maybe Missouri. Had some conversations about hunting Montana, and Basemap, because it just covers all of them. And I also like the idea. A lot of times I'll actually do a side-by-side comparison with things just to make sure, like, landowner boundaries, like, just as my double check, because I don't want to get myself in a scenario where, hey, this said it's public land and this one said it's because there's a lot of state trust land in Colorado that you can't actually hunt, even though it's like government property. So you have to kind of, do as much research as you can to figure out, all right, is this legal, not legal, that kind of deal.
Well, I know that, I've been using onX almost probably a year after it came out. I have a long time, a while. And it just, there's not really a need for a new onX or a new Basemap. Basemap and onX are competing, obviously, but they've done such a great job with their platforms. I really don't know if there's any really, maybe there is more space and I'm just not thinking outside the box. But yeah, if you come out with something original, I think there's definitely more, because hunters don't have a lot of platforms out there, especially social media platforms. The only one I can think of is like Go Wild. That's like actually like an outdoorsman platform, but yours isn't even competing with that one from what I understand, right?
Yeah, I'm not much of a social media guy. Like, you can go to my Instagram, and really the only reason why there's some content there is my wife will be like, you should do something on Instagram, or you should, and like, and every once in a while I'll kind of feel good because, like, man, I posted 3 days in a row like that. But like, it's not like, it does not come easy, nor does it, like, it's just not a natural fit for me. And so, like, even things like Go Wild, like I don't know if I posted or didn't post or whatever, but I have the app and would kind of get on there. but it just wasn't what I was looking for. I know they talk about like logging activities and
Right.
all these things, all of them, Onyx, base maps, they all have the ability. You can drop a waypoint, you can track your miles, you can do different things in it. Um, but ultimately, like what I felt like was the most important piece to this was like, I want to make sure we're capturing the story, and I want it to be the best digital hunting journal that like tool that I can have. So there's things in it where you have text, video, audio notes, things like that are all tied to a waypoint, that are tied to a time on it within a hunt. So you can see like at 7:14 a.m. this happened, at 7:43 a.m. this happened, and you can do as much or as little detail as you want in the app, and it's pretty intuitive in terms of, when you start a hunt, you push the go button. Like, are you doing a scout? You doing a hunt? You select that. Select, all right, what species are you going after? Right now, you can select up to 2 species, and I've never really thought more. But this year, I have elk, deer, and bear tag all in the same unit. So I am going, man, I actually need 3. But then I always carry 1 arrow in my quiver that's a grouse arrow, and so I'm like, shoot. I need to double my species count going into the hunt. So
right.
That might be something you see in the near future where it's like, no, you need to be able to add more. I was always like, when are you ever going to need more than like 2 species when I was starting it? But I'm finding myself in that scenario. So the app does keep evolving as like some of those types of things come up. And I'm like, oh no, this is actually practical and useful to be able to expand it in this direction. So, but then basically for each species, you have kind of intuitive like events that would occur. Like you have a sighting, you have sounds, like, did you hear a bugle? Did you hear a mute? What did you hear the herd like talking? Did you hear a bull raking a tree? Like all of those types of things, you have something called like CDSB, which stands for call, decoy, scent, or bait. Anything that you use to draw the animal in. Because a lot of guys are spot and stop, where you spot an animal, you everything you can to get downwind and silent and kind of approach it. But the CDSB, there's a lot of guys too that like they don't even care about the spot and stalk. They want a fired up bull that's coming in hot, charging them. And
right.
And so you can like, what did you use to draw that animal in? Like, call, scent, decoy, bait, and you can list the gear. And you can have like in a call sequence, you can say like, all right, who did the call? Like I bugled, the bull bugled back. I did a cow call. The bull was silent. The bull disappeared, and you can make a note of it too. And like, and I've had those hunts, and you probably have too, where it's like, I said the wrong thing.
Yeah.
I had a bull fired up, then I did this, and then it was just over. Like something happened where I blew it. And so like, if somebody wants to kind of be that level of detailed, like you can be that level of detailed, or you can just say, I called from here and something responded from here, and you kind of log that and move on and fill in the details after the hunt, or, later or never, and you just kind of have it logged kind of the way that you would want it.
So you put it like a diary. So you're basically going through a hunt day, and you can do it live time, real time. You can like, not that you'd want to pull out your phone when a bull's bugling at you, but you could find a wallow and like, oh, here, blah, 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 and you could fill that out. Or like if you wanted to go back to camp, you could basically, I like the way that you put it. It's like a diary. You're writing in your diary, but this is like a video, photo diary with writing too, that you can keep and then go back and revisit your memories kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like there's some stuff where like I had in 2019, I ended up shooting this young kind of 5x5 that, he was, just screaming, like not like the kind that you dream of. Like he had to, it was a 2-hour ordeal, but in that 2-hour time period, he probably bugled close to 200 times.
Yeah.
Like, it was just like nonstop. Like if I made a sound, he screamed right away.
Yeah.
If I didn't make a sound, he was so anxious. He was screaming, trying to get me to respond. And there were different points where I made a sound to try to get him to come in. And I think I had him coming in twice. And then at one time I totally screwed the thing up, and he took off running, and I gave it about 15 minutes, and I kind of walked over a ridge and I bugled again, and he fired right back up again. And like, I was like, I thought that bull was gone. But one of the things I kind of wish I would have done, like looking back, I think I could pull up that hunt log, and I know at least in one spot, I pulled out my phone and got an audio recording of his bugle.
Oh, really? I mean, I
Yeah.
do that already. I do that because I always try, like, when I'm filming, I have a million little clips from when I hunted last year of bulls. Like, there's a nice 5-point crossing the road right in front of me. I was calling in another bull, and then he just crossed the road in front of me. And, like, I have video clips like that, and I always try and get him bugling because that's, like, the coolest part. So I'm already doing that, kind of like what you were doing.
Yeah. And I would say there's kind of two things. It's like, one is, all right, if you're journaling and doing it in real time, like, how much is it potentially taking you out of the experience? Because a lot, this as an outdoorsman, like a lot of the reason why we do what we do is to escape into the wild, and
Right.
it is to get away. It's one of the few. I was just having a conversation with a guy yesterday at an archery range where he was like, man, I was listening, like we just finished at the archery range, and this guy starts talking, and he's saying, everything else in my life, like what's going on in work, I have to be forecasting like what's happening next, what, the mistakes I made from yesterday, what I forgot, what I didn't do. And he's like, hunting is the one thing I have where I get to fully live in the moment. He's like, I don't have to be distracted by what's going on, what happened yesterday. I don't carry in the baggage of work. I don't carry in the baggage of, financial stressors or all those things. He's like, hunting is that one thing where I get to fully live in the moment. And there's an element to me where I like, holy cow, like let's preserve. I mean, that becomes like sacred space in our life. Like, it's like, okay, that's special. And I do think it's like me and my wife, we just celebrated our 20th anniversary, and we were in Hawaii, and we watched these like Instagram girls come running out on the beach and like take photos and then jump back in the car and like go to the next beach. And I was like, they didn't even like get wet. They didn't even enjoy one thing. They're in this gorgeous paradise of Hawaii, but we're so caught up in like what we're capturing for others that we failed to like even experience the moment. And you're faking all the moment. I'm like, I don't want Hunt League to become that. I don't want Hunt League to become like this prestigious show thing where everybody's on there trying to one up one another, or like show like, hey, my experiences are so much better. It's like, just stop. Like, you may find an account deleted from time to time because I'm just like, I don't even want this garbage on. Like,
right.
But it's like, that's not really what I'm after. And so like losing sight of like living in the moment. So I don't want the app to be something that takes you out of it.
Right.
But
well, that's good.
Preserving the moment is a different thing, because there's so many things that are like, the Elkwoods are so sacred. Like it's such a, and I shouldn't say just elk, because like I took my son on a pig hunt in Oklahoma in March, and it was incredible. And like the experience it was his 10th birthday. The experience that we got to have was absolutely spectacular. And I have footage from that I've logged, and I have this like story captured. And it's like, that's something now that I have the timeline of when it all happened. I have video of right before he took the shot, us walking up on the pig, like, and it's like something that's like, oh my gosh, like I actually have this moment and the timeline kind of preserved in a way that like, I'm so grateful for that. So there's a value in what we experience in the wild that it's like, no, these memories, like they're so special. It's kind of like, it's worth documenting, it's worth preserving, and it's worth passing on. I mean, you go back to like the ancient cave paintings, and it's like the most kind of those like ancient painting stuff that we see has to do with wildlife, has to do with these hunting experiences.
Right.
It has to do, and like the artifacts that we find are arrowheads, and it's like these were tools made from bones, and all of that stuff is built into the imprint of human history. And the reason why they did those paintings was they were telling those stories to their children, to the tribe. I mean, it was a rite of passage. It was an element of like, survival. And like what this is it's like, this is a new take on something that has been around since the beginning of mankind. Like we're capturing a story in a way that you can actually preserve it and pass it down, help feed it to the next generation, educate people on what the actual experience is like. Because like I was showing a buddy who doesn't hunt recently some of my he was asking me what I was working on. I started showing him some of the app. I'm circling through, it does this, it does this, it does this, glazed over. And then we jumped into a couple hunt logs,
Uh-huh.
and he was like, oh my gosh, wait a second. And he started going through like the day of what actually happened in the day. And you saw this, and he started asking me like when he got into the hunt logs, he was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Really?
And we actually left there. We left there. He came to my house. I have a handful of bows. Like you might be like me, where
I've got a few.
you've got a little bit of an addiction. So we went into my garage, and I was like, here, you've never shot a bow. I've got this one. It's probably set up at like 40, 45 pounds or something, because it's hard just to jump it into like a 70-pound bow if you've never drawn one back.
Right.
But we get him out there, and he starts shooting, and then he was totally into it. And I was like, here, just take the bow, take this target. And I sent him home. And he's been sending me photos from him shooting off his back deck out at like 50 yards, where he's actually getting a group now.
Huh.
And he's like, he's pumped. He's like, I don't know if I'll ever hunt. But like, it all started because we were like sharing a story.
Right. Well, that's what it's about, though. I mean, if you can introduce somebody like with a soft introduction that way, and then you let them discover hunting in the outdoor and discover archery kind of on their own. I mean, I don't know if anybody can actually claim ever getting somebody into hunting or archery. Hunting will do that on its own. Archery will do that on its own. And you can introduce them to it, but I mean, the actual act of hunting and interacting with the animals, or even just shooting the bow, that's what gets somebody. That's what hooks them in. I mean, I've tried a million times to get my wife out in the woods just to hear a bugle, or like if I have a bear that's super predictable, like I'll like convince her to get in the truck with me, and I'm like, you have to come see this bear. Like I call him Digger. He's in the same spot. He's always digging the same like area of this like bee's nest something, and you can see him just getting stung, and he'll only be like 150 yards away, and so she doesn't really give a shit. She'll look at it for like 20 seconds and then be back on her phone, but like.
Yeah, cool bear.
I mean, it's like, oh, sweet. I'm like, how many people have never seen a wild bear or heard an elk bugle? I don't know. 99% of people will never go out and see a sunrise and an elk bugle at the same time. I mean, I bet.
Yeah.
We take that for granted. But, I mean, you introduced a guy into archery, and you showed him, here's what my day looked like when I was hunting. It's not just going out there and shooting an innocent animal. Like, I was working my ass off that day, and maybe I didn't kill one, or maybe I did. Yeah, I mean, to me, that's in essence of what we should be doing. You're basically just being a good ambassador, at that point.
Yeah.
But if the app is what triggered that to me, that's a success.
Absolutely, and that's what I'm so excited on the front of like that. We talk about like hunter recruitment, and hunter recruitment can actually like be a sore spot too, because there's a lot of people, like the state of Colorado, I want to say this year had over 20% application.
Yeah.
I mean, it grew 20% in our applications.
Yeah. Oregon's all the states I think are up a minimum of like 5% that I've heard so far. We had over 5,000, or was it 15? I forget the number. I had the number in my head the other day, but yeah, it was over astronomical. I think we had a few thousand extra bear permit or applications this year, just alone for spring bear. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But
it is kind of wild, because there's like a competing narrative, that I'm always hearing, where it's like, man, nobody, like we have this massive problem in society where we've got our hunter recruitment numbers and the number of young people getting into the sport. And then I'm also looking at it going like, well, yeah, but if you just look at Colorado's history with like in the last couple of years, I mean, they went from selling 9,000 or 10,000 turkey tags in the spring to 20 something thousand in a matter of like a few years. And it's like, that's like absolutely astronomical growth,
Right.
And it's getting like the place that I drew this year, for 5 years in a row, I drew as a second choice up through 2018. And it was always like the backup unit. And then we applied for it 2 years ago and got rejected, and I was like, wait, so you can't get it as a second choice? And then now, like, half my friends didn't draw it this year, and we all put it in as a first choice.
Really?
Like, yeah. So it's like, okay, now I'm working on my other backups, not my, not this unit, because this unit's fine. It's funny, like we were even I don't mean to rabbit trail or jump
Oh,
back,
it's all good.
but we were talking about like living in the moment, you know, and like making sure the app doesn't take you out. What's kind of funny is I look back at my logs in this unit last year. I see, you know, I saw more elk in 2020 than in that season than I had seen in the previous 10 years combined.
Really?
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. Every day I was in elk. I had days, you know, I had days where I saw well over 100 elk in different groups, you know, and I'm like, I've never, ever experienced that during archery season. You know, a lot of times I'm having a single bull come in. It's, you know, your satellite. And so you kind of see him, or, you know, you get a glimpse and here's 3 or 4 cows and then there's a little bull kind of hanging out near it, or, you know, and, you know, you hear stories of, all right, there's 18 of them over here. But it was like, I was, you know, from one spot, I would be looking like, all right, there's elk there. There's elk there. There's elk there. There's elk there. It was crazy. And I have pictures of tons of elk, but all the pictures I have from last year are the cows and the small bulls, because every time I saw a big bull, the phone was away and the camera was in the bag. You know, it was like,
game on.
You know,
Let's
like
go.
I think I saw 4 bulls that were, you know, 310 or better. Biggest bull was probably around 330. And so those were the one. And it's like, I don't have a picture of one of them. I have a picture of one that was kind of running off into the trees, like a little video clip. And I do have that in one of my hunt logs. There was like a herd of them all running away. I had no chance to like hunt them. I came up over a rise. The wind got me right away. And I was like, oh, there they go. You know, and I grabbed my camera real fast and filmed them running into the trees. So there was no hunt opportunity there. But all the other times that I was like in proximity and within 40, 50, 70 yards kind of a deal, I have no pictures or videos. Why? Because I was hunting.
Right.
You know, I wasn't caught up. So it's like, I wish I had that, but I still have the notes logged because I was able to go back and like, here was a sighting. This is what I saw, but I just don't have some of the pictures because, you know, I am hunting first.
Right.
And then kind of documenting and sharing the story that is secondary. And I think that it always should be that way. Like I feel sad. Like if somebody uses this app and finds themselves missing the opportunity of a lifetime on an animal because they had their head buried in their phone, it's like
missing the point.
Yeah. Like throw your phone in the lake, man. Like, it's not worth it. Like, so I don't know. I don't know if that helped sell the app at all.
I mean, if an app detracted from me, like you said, living in the moment or actually hunting, I wouldn't be interested in it. Period. Like, there's no reason if posting for others, like on Instagram or something. There's one year where I probably 4 years ago, and I was hunting with my buddy Mitch, so it might have been longer than that. One of my really good friends, Mitch, and I think we were hunting over in Eastern Oregon, and I just found myself taking photos of shit I didn't really care about, but it made for a good post. And I was like taking videos of stuff I wouldn't have, doing a bunch of things and altering my behaviors in order to cater to my Instagram and like products. And I just at that time I was trying to grow, but I was doing it in a way that I didn't like, and I just felt gross. Just the whole time I felt gross. I'm like, and then, you know, my buddy's like, dude, what are you doing? I was like, I don't know, but I don't like it. You know, like it just felt gross to me. And maybe I'm not one of those guys that can ever have a TV show because of that. But, you know, number one, it was detracting from the hunt. He even noticed it. It was detracting from his experience because, you know, we'd have a bugle and I'd be on my phone and he's like, what are you fucking doing, dude? Let's go.
Yeah. Well, that's that thing of being present. You weren't present in the moment.
Right.
You're thinking about the other
this
stuff
or that.
Yeah.
There was other motives other than hunting, and I got away from that, right? And so now when I post something, it's because I'm literally excited to show somebody. Like, I think one of my favorite posts last year from elk season was I was coming off the mountain and walking back to my truck, and I think I was on bulls all evening that evening. I was on a big 300-inch bull, and there was bugling all over the place. It was one of the best evenings I had that year, and the moon was super giant, and it was like just a freaking spotlight in the sky, and you could see it coming out from behind the mountains in the view. And I'm like, so I sat down, got my binoculars, and I just filmed it, and I'm like, that is so freaking sweet. Like, it was one of the biggest moons I've ever seen, right? And that was one of my favorite posts last year, and I was excited to actually share it. Like, that had nothing to do with bulls or hunting, but that was just for me. Like, 20 minutes before daylight or dark, I was just on a bull, and then now I'm like watching the sun come up or the moon come up. I'm like, that's some pretty cool stuff. And I still look at that video every once in a while, and then,
sure,
you can hear the bugs in the background, and it's just, I don't know, it was a really, that's something that I will never forget. Just that little moment there, and so yeah, I mean, I'm like, for sure, never going back to what I did that one hunting season a few years ago. I'm just not interested in it. And so hearing that your app isn't going to detract from my experience or my hunt makes me more interested in it,
Yeah. And I think, I think the way that it's set up is like, it's really intuitive once you're in the field. Like, I have it set up where you can start a hunt and you can either log stuff from, like, you can see kind of a dashboard page where you've got sighting, sound, CDSB, sign, a shot, success. You've got blood. You can kind of track your blood trail, and you can do that from like a screen that's not locked in on the map. But even if it's not locked in on the map and you're not looking at the map screen at all, when you click here's sign, and here's an antler rub, or here's whatever that you're marking, you save it, it's going to lock the GPS. It's going to lock everything in. So you have a timestamp, GPS, the notes, everything there. But then if you're a guy that, like, man, you're looking at your map all the time, because some of us are conditioned, like, all right, I'm going to look at map. I'm going to look at topography. The app works completely offline. Yeah. I find myself doing that. And last year I kind of added that going in. Before, I kind of you had the map page, which you had to go to, and then you had like the dashboard page where you could kind of log, your events that would occur during a hunt. Well, last year I was actually sitting with a guy that was an Air Force Academy graduate, super, like, he's all about efficiency and like order and the least amount of steps. And he was like, when I start a hunt, I want to be on my map, because that's where I want to live when I'm in the hunt. And I want to be able to log stuff directly from my map screen. And I want to be able to see where the waypoint is dropped, so that I know when it happens in real time that it's happening the way that I want it to. Like, he wants that level of like control and precision. And I was like, man, that is brilliant. And went back, kind of drew up some stuff, like, here's how we can kind of integrate that. So now, like, when you start into a hunt, you just kind of swipe over to the right, and you're instantly, like, in your maps. You can add all of your events, and you can basically live in your map screen. You just have to, in that scenario, you just have to know what the icons are, and they're pretty intuitive. Like, so, because you push something and it says, like, all right, kind of which event are you trying to enter? Right. It's not asking you that question, but it pulls up a list of icons, and this one represents a sighting. This one represents that CDSB. This one represents, that call, decoy, scent, bait. This one represents sign, that kind of deal. And so if you kind of have a good idea of what the events are, you'll know which one to click. It'll drop the waypoint, and it brings you, I felt like that was one, like, less step in the field where it's just like, I can stay active. Like, I know where I am, like onX big deal is like, knowing where you're at, and there's a lot of hunters that, like, I want to look at my map, and I want to know where I'm at relative to the terrain around me. And so bringing that in last year was a huge step. And that was just a suggestion from a guy that was taking a look at it. And that's been a really fun part of the process too, is just listening to some of the stuff, is like people spitball and like throw out ideas, like, oh man, but what if it did this or that? Yeah. And then it's like, okay, sometimes because I'm a one-man show and hiring different people and trying to like just move it in one direction. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it might take me 3 months or 6 months to kind of get an idea where it's actually integrated and live in the app. But it's like, man, I've got this whole laundry list of things that I like can't wait to introduce and bring in. It's fun, because when this is your passion, it's like, the only stuff that I'm like not really passionately pursuing, where people are like, well, why don't you have the landowner boundaries? Why don't you have this? Or why don't you have that? And it's like, because I actually already have all that stuff on my phone. I just open onX, I have it on Basemap. Like, even there's another one called like Outly that has landowner boundaries, and it's a free one. And it's like, just get that one, it's like, just, like there's a million of those that, like, hey, go grab it, go do it. Like, you know, I do think like weather is such an important piece, and I don't have weather integrated right now, and I get that a lot. And part of it is like, man, there's like Scout Look is an awesome weather app. I use AccuWeather for a lot of what I'm doing. Like it's really, you know, Onyx has weather built into it. But what I can do is I'll just take like a screenshot of a weather thing and I can add the photo of that weather thing into that. But eventually, like, you connect to like basically an API, which is just going to pull that data. And because you have the hunt logged wherever you kind of started your hunt from, in the future, we'll pull weather into the app, and then you'll have a whole list of like what the weather conditions were that day. I just haven't integrated it right now because it costs monthly, it costs money every month to integrate that.
Oh,
but once I bring it in, it'll be backwards compatible. So if you log something in 2019, it just shoots like, here was the location where I was at, this is the day, and it'll pull the weather from the nearest like tower or station for what the weather was like. So some of those things, people are like, when are you going to integrate that? And it's like, well, right now I'm just kind of building and paying for all this stuff. So like I'll eventually integrate that, but there's workarounds right now that I don't,
right.
So
well, I guess
I don't really care to address.
So, I mean, when I first heard about like you started talking to me about it originally, I was worried that it was like, oh, who can kill the biggest animal? I'm like, well, this isn't something I'd be interested in, because then it's just promoting hunting and taking away from what it's really about. But
sure.
It doesn't sound like it's about that. It sounds like you can go out and your tracking is scouting on there too.
Yeah.
So you're
Scouting's
taking
a big part of it.
So you're taking and you're gathering points, doing all the activities that go into finding success in the woods. It's not just killing the biggest animal you can find and I killed a 400-inch bull, I'm going to win. Like that's not what the app is about. And so, can you walk me through the like competing and how you earn points and that aspect of the app?
Yeah, I think like we can kind of pull back the curtain and say like, all right, what's behind here? Kind of as I said in the intro, like there was a part of like the creation of the app was like us having stories, and then a way for us like who had the better season and which one of us is the better hunter. That year, if I jump back to 2015, I called in a bull for the guy that asked me to originally go hunting that morning and the next night. And he had him within 20 yards, a nice 6x6 in the morning, had a good bull that he took a shot on and went right over his back that evening.
Uh-huh.
But I called the bull in both times. The next morning we go out and I called in a bull and the guy takes a shot at like 12 yards and smokes a beautiful bull. And so that was awesome. Later on that hunt, there's two cows that are about 20 yards from me and they're behind a thing of sticks. And I'm looking back and I'm like, call. I need you to do something to get these. I just need them to move like 1 foot. Like I just need them to come from behind this tree and they're locked right on me. And I just need them to take a step this way or this way. And I kept trying to get their attention. I was like, just help me. Like help. I helped you guys a ton. Like help me a little bit and I can get a cow. And neither one of them could figure it out. And then finally the cows like walked off and I like was like, what the heck, you guys? Like, we got to be a team here. And so, that was part of the conversation of just like us mocking each other, laughing at each other. Well, I brought in a bull twice for this guy. You're supposed to be the better hunter of all of us. And you missed the shot,
right.
And he blames it on his rangefinder giving him a bad range. And I blame it on like, dude, you were so nervous because you had that nice 6x6. And I was like, he was so much closer than you thought. And I guarantee you ranged right behind him on the hillside.
Yeah.
And, so we laughed and, and that's the fun part about it though. Like we mock each other, we have fun. It's the camaraderie, but we wanted the competition there was an element of competition and people like you just said this, like the 400-inch bull, is it all about who kills the biggest thing? Is that really what we're celebrating here with the app? And it's like, no, like the app is about celebrating the stories of individual hunters. And you will know this as a hunter. It's like a trophy for one person is completely different in the eyes of other people. Like in years past, I've been thrilled taking a 4-corn buck just because it's like, man, I was out deer hunting and this buck walked out and I walked away and I was successful. And I've never really cared about the antlers. That's never been like a thing for me. It was just like, I'm going on this hunt to be successful. This year, the narrative is a little bit different, not because I feel pressure, like I've got to kill a big animal to show the world that I can kill a big animal. But it's like, no, I've waited a few years. I've been in this unit one other time that I've hunted at archery, and I scouted it. I had several good deer, and there was one deer that I was chasing, you know, and kind of had a name. It was like Scarface because he had this like scar across his face. And I was like, that's the deer that I really wanted to get. And I had 3 different opportunities where I put a stock on him, and something went wrong. You know, like I got to about 40 yards, was as close as I got. I stood up to take a shot, and all I could see was antlers behind a sagebrush, and I just had no shot. You know, and I went in. I had some rocks. I took my boots off, and I was trying to sneak over. Like there was a bunch of like loose rocks, gravel slipped. You know, they stood up, looked my way. You know, and it was like, gosh, this is so hard, you know? And ultimately I ended up shooting. There's a smaller buck right there on my screen that
that 4-point
in the podcast.
3x4.
Yeah. It's a little 4x4. But it wasn't what I was after. But this time I'm going back into that unit. I took that one on the last day of the season, and it was kind of like, okay, I'm going to go home with something, and I still love it. It's on my wall. Like I'll celebrate it. But it wasn't what I was after. And this year it's like, no, I've never ever pursued like a big buck. And this year it's like, that's what I want to do. So I like, when I have that forkhorn that walks by, like this year will be the first year that I'm like just letting it pass because, you know, it's just, I have a different kind of target in mind. But when it comes to like the point system and what it really represents, why it's there, it really has more to do with kind of the effort and what you're putting into the hunt, with everything, with every activity that you start and with every event that you log. You're kind of, there's a point value system that isn't published because we keep kind of making little changes to it. Like, no, because as we're seeing it being used in the field, we're starting to be able to recognize, no, this needs to be worth something different. Or after like, you know, just watching how it's being used, you know, like we have different kind of point values for every method of take, for the different types of land that you're hunting, for a sighting is different than hearing a sound. All of these things have a different value. And really the point of it is not to see like who's the best hunter. Cause like, how do you compare a hunt for Roosevelt elk in Oregon to a hunt in Colorado? How do you compare a unit that's a draw unit to an over-the-counter unit?
Or a private ranch, you know?
Yeah. How do you compare that? How do you do, you know, a deer hunt from Colorado to Texas where you can get multiple, you know, like, do I penalize the deer hunter in Colorado because he only shot 1 deer in a season, or he didn't shoot a deer in a season, where the guy in Texas who's sitting at a feeder? And I'm not trying to like disregard like a feeder, like it's legal in Texas. It's not legal in Oklahoma or in Colorado. So it's like, but he's able to harvest 6 deer in a year off of his farm that he's been feeding these deer all year. And it's like, how do you create a point system? Is it like, is that guy who's been feeding the deer and he's been putting in work? Like I'm not taking anything away from that. He spent money all year long feeding those deer, conditioning them to come to the feeder. You know, he timed it where he's not going to disrupt them and blow them out of the area. He timed it. He did his homework, and that's the style of hunt that he did. And we're going to celebrate all the different styles of legal hunting in the app. But it's like, that was his journey. And I think his story is just as important as the guy who hasn't drawn a tag in 3 years, draws a tag in Colorado, and then puts in the scouting and does the work. But it's like, how do you compare those stories and give a point system one to the other? Is it because this guy walked more miles, or is it because this guy sat in a blind and waited longer? You know, it's so from the beginning, I'm going to say the point system will never be, it'll never be an accurate, it'll just never be an accurate picture of like who's actually the best hunter. But what it does represent is who's putting in the work. The more scouts you log, the higher you're going to rank. The more hunts you log, the higher you're going to rank, period. The people that, if you look at their the top couple people on our leaderboard,
Mm-hmm.
they have logged the most hunts and they have logged the most scouts in our system. Not because they've been the most successful, they've just put in more work than others. And because every time you log something, it's adding points. So if you're really concerned about like where your rank is and like how you finish a season, I'm like, don't let that. It's kind of the thing where you were talking, it's taking you out of the hunt. You start thinking about something that you really shouldn't be thinking about. The point system is secondary. The foundation of the app is the storytelling and capturing the story of the hunt. Out of that storytelling component, you don't have to do anything else as a user to already be ranking up and moving the point system. Because you have the ability to log your story, we can add a point system to it, and it just adds to the value of it. Because we have the foundation of the logs, we can add, the community posts and the, kind of basically like your Instagram style posts or your Go Wild posts, where you can have a little bit of like your story and people can look at other hunters and if they were successful or whatnot. Because you have that foundation of the journal, here next week, we're going to have a release that will allow you, if you want to share your hunt log publicly on our community page, you can share the details of your hunt where somebody could say, all right, Garrett went on this elk hunt. I want to see what his elk hunt looked like. Even if you didn't see an animal, I want to know what you did on that elk hunt, what you logged. And I could click on, if you shared that openly on the community page, you could click that and view it. The biggest difference would be when you're looking at your hunt log, it has GPS information and you can see where everything happened. When you share it with the community, there's no GPS or location data
Well, that's good.
given on that. So just to make sure that we're all not thinking like, oh yeah, just share everything you do on the community page. And,
right. Yeah, you'd lose me there too.
And expect people like, yeah, go ahead and see what happens when you take a picture of a 300-inch bull and then post it on there and then and go back the next day to try to kill it. Like,
yeah.
Holy mackerel.
Yeah, I made that mistake before during bear season. I posted a picture of a bear. I'm like, oh, most people won't know where this is at. And then the next evening, there's 6 trucks on the landing. I'm like, people figured it out. People friggin' figured it out, man. Like, I did that. That's stupid, Well,
that's one thing. Like, even before you post before you put a post onto our community page,
mm-hmm.
I have a few notes that just says, hey, this is, here's a couple of our rules. Don't post location or GPS data. Like in your post, even though we don't allow it to automatically, like there's no location data on our community page, but don't write it into your post.
Oh, okay.
Like that's a rule. Like if you write it into your post, we're going to censor you. And censor is a bad word. Like if there's a report button on it. Like, so if you did a post and wrote your GPS, a user could look at that and push like a censor button and it would report it. And if we saw, no, that violates what we said, then it would go away.
Right.
My level of censorship versus Facebook's level of censorship is totally different. It's
well, I mean, it's like
I don't have any algorithms for censorship.
It's like a hunter's non-written agreement censorship. Like you're not going to go out and post a picture of I'm sure as heck not, of a 300-inch Rosie over here and be like, well, I saw this in such and such unit and then in this cut at 745 and then like even if I'm not hunting in that unit, somebody else is and that may be somebody else's sweet honey hole and it's just a really slippery slope. So hearing that you guys have protections for that is definitely forward thinking and you would lose a lot of guys there too because no one wants to. It's hard to find a good, especially on Rosies. If you find a good Rosie spot, it's most likely, unless something crazy happens, the elk are going to be there every year with a Rosie. It's just their home ranges are small, and so good Rosie spots are hard to find that not everybody and their mother knows about. And so when you find one, you're like, I didn't see anything today, But
you might have to wait to post up to the community page
until after the season. Yeah, exactly.
Over,
yeah,
which is totally, and that's an option because it's a on and off button at the so the button for sharing it with the community is strategically placed at the very bottom of the hunt log, meaning you'd have to scroll from your title to like the start of your hunt because everything's listed chronologically down to your end hunt, down to your safe, like what gear you used in the hunt. Like you can put, I use this rifle with this scope, or I use this bow with this release, with this stabilizer, with this broadhead, with this spined arrow. You can get as detailed as you want on that. But at the very, very, very bottom is a share this hunt with the community. And the reason why it's there is because it's like, no, I want you to review everything that you wrote. Like, you got to scroll through the whole thing and then intentionally push that button to share it with the community. Because it's like, no, hopefully you've read what you did so that you don't like, because I have this, like, I'll post, I'll have some of the titles of my hunts, like, because at the end you'll name the hunt, and some hunts you have something creative to name it. It'll auto name the hunt by the date and species you're hunting if you didn't want to name it anything. But a lot of times I'll put the unit that I'm in plus day, so it's like this unit, unit 481, unit 444, day one. Unit 110, day 3, that's kind of a lot of how I will name. And so I'm going to have to go back in and rename some of my hunts if I want to share those,
right.
With people. So it's like, those things are the things to be mindful of, but it's at the very bottom. And if you share it and then decide, like, you know what, I don't want everybody seeing this, like, you can just as easily unclick that. And the next time somebody logs through the community thing and tries to find, there's no, that your post might still be up there, and you could delete the post if you want to. Like, you have control from start to finish of your data. And it's not just, we're talking on the grand side of community, like with what the app does. Like, you can show that to the public, let's call that, like, the community page is kind of your public kind of facing page in the app. Like, so you can be seen, like, I can go to I can see you posted something. I can click the little profile picture that you have, and it'll give me the option to either follow you or add you as a buddy. And those are totally different things. If I follow you, when you log a hunt and you post something in the community, it'll send me a notification like, hey, Garrett just completed a hunt. So I can go in and look and see what you posted about the hunt. A buddy is a different deal. And in the app, because I told you, part of the genesis of this whole thing was us connecting as a group of hunters. And it was like my group of elk hunters. Now, we didn't want that, all the information. I still don't want that, the information of what we do as a group of elk hunters, to be public. So in the app, there's buddies, which means, like, it's a different level. Like, these are the guys that you hunt with. These are the guys that you're going to actually share maybe more information with. Or if you're a super private guy and maybe you don't want to post your hunt log on the community page, you can share a hunt log with somebody privately, but you have to be buddies. And a buddy means I have to send you a buddy request and you have to accept it. Both people have to do that. I can't just be like, oh, I'm going to add him as a buddy and now we're buddies and we can talk. It's like, that's a different level of relationship. It's not just like I'm following somebody on Facebook. So there's a couple layers to it. But then once you're buddies with somebody, you can share a hunt log. By default, it will share that hunt log without GPS information. Because sometimes you're just wanting to share your story with that buddy.
Right.
And then there is a little toggle at the bottom that you can switch and say, I want to share the GPS with Garrett. And then it'll hit you and you can actually see all the waypoints on your map. You can, you have full access to the GPS, everything that I'm seeing, you see. And what gets kind of cool about that is you can also go in and create like an area, or if you have hung a couple tree stands up, you can name like a stand and share that with a group of buddies. You can only share that with buddies. You can never share an area or stand with the community at large, because again, there's no location information shared with the community at large. So you can have a stand or area, and if there's 3 or 4 of us all hunting in the same unit, and here's 5 or 6 areas that we've kind of outlined as places to go. If you have a data signal, you have to have a cell signal for this aspect of the app to work. Everything works offline for you to go and log a hunt, log a scout. It's completely ready for the backcountry. But if you want to interact with other people, I've got to send something from my phone to your phone. You've got to have a data signal. But I could look at an area or stand and I can see, all right, when was the last time one of our group of guys, if you share that amongst your group, when was the last time somebody was in that area? When they were in there, did they see anything? Were they successful? And how did they rate it for that species? You can kind of see a quick score thing that you can cycle through, and it'll show all the recent activity of people that have been in there recently. So you can go like, man, this is this. And the other thing is it shows some statistics, which is another part of like why I built the app.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to throw a dear friend under a bus, the guy that got me into the app. I'm going to publicly say something that I have not so privately shared with him. But one of the things that we've done, we got a spot that he loves to hunt. Like it's his basin, like this is his basin. This is his honey hole. And we would always every year go together, but it's like, he wasn't going to go to any other place on the mountain. He was going to go to this one honey hole now, which can be good. And it has produced elk before, but we've been in there where there's no elk.
Right.
And rather than, all right, I'm going to go to the other side of the ridge and there's elk over there. It's like, no, like they'll be in here. Like, I know they'll come. Like if they're not in here now, they'll be in here tomorrow. And so he is so committed to that spot that we've gone through several years where somebody doesn't pull an elk out of there because it's like, we spent all of our time in there. And I while I'm dying going like, I just want to go to the other side of the hill,
mm-hmm.
But it's like, but I also want to like, we're hunting together and I'll just come back another weekend and go hunt all these other spots. But ultimately, like a part of the why was, hey, I want to have some definitive proof about like what area we should hunt in and which ones are more like, I have one spot that I've gone 5 times and every single time I've been in there, I've seen elk. Like it's 100% on the sighting. I've never gone in this area and not seen elk. Now I've never killed an elk back there. But I've come close. And last year we should have killed an elk out of there. It was a day one, a buddy was out of state and a cow was 20 yards from him. And I was like, why didn't you shoot that? I was like, and he was like, well, there was a bull bugling right above it. And I wanted to shoot the bull. And I was like, no, like shoot the cow, like just shoot the elk. Like, but again, that shows my philosophy. I'm like,
right.
that's the kind of hunter I am. I'm like, just shoot the cow. Like I would have gladly hauled that meat off and, that would have been success. And then we ended the year and he didn't fill his tag.
Oh.
And I'm like, why didn't you shoot the cow?
Yeah.
So anyway, but the part of that areas and stands is collecting that data, especially amongst a group. And then we can go in and see and there's even times where, and you might have experienced this. I don't know how often you hunt with the same group of guys or anything like that. But sometimes it's like you send your buddies into a spot and they never see anything. But it's like, but every time you go there,
right?
It's like, this is my honey hole. Like It's when I'm here, like it happens. I can send my buddies in and they see nothing. And it's like, and so in that there's your statistics and then there's everybody else's statistics. So you can compare how you do in an area compared to how everybody else does. And make a determination like, all right, what area do I actually want to be going to and spending the most energy? Which area have we not been in, boogering things up? Like what's a fresh area that we could go to? So some of those things, and that going back, like that comes down to like the whole buddies thing, following the levels of community within a buddies. You can create a hunting party, which is a group of buddies. And so you could have your own list of, and if you've got a party, you can message in the app with that party. You can share hunt logs with that party. So you don't have to pick each individual name. So I want to share it with this person, this person, this person. But again, if you're sharing that level of information, like hunt logs with GPS, it's a tight circle. You're not doing that. You're not doing that with 100 people. The way I envision buddies and parties working, it's like, no, that's like your inner core of guys that you want to spend time with.
Well, I guess, and being able to see what the success and how often you see an animal in there would really, honestly, because there's a lot of spots I go bear hunting and it's like, I'll go in there and I'll see a bear, almost every time. And then maybe this time of year, they just leave or I just quit seeing them, and it'd be nice to go back and look and compare that year over year to see when should I quit hunting that unit, because whatever they're feeding on, or whatever's going on, say, May 15th, they're moving on to something else. And so it'll help me be like maybe a more efficient hunter that way. And so like I like being able to go back and look. When I put stuff in onX, I'm making notes with it too. And I even color coordinate my tracks and stuff like that. So like a successful track or whatever. That's just the way I use onX. So I don't have to go back through a bunch of orange tracks or orange waypoints. Like different colors mean different things and stuff. And so like if we drew blood, it turns into a red track, or something like that. So I'm already doing stuff like that. So it sounds like your app might be able to take me in like the more statistical side of, well, I saw an elk here 50% of the time, and out of that 50% of the time, 10% of the time I stuck one, or something like that.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
That'd be actually pretty cool.
Sightings. It only does sightings and success right now, as far as like, and the way it does a sighting would be like, and the way the statistics work, it's pretty basic on that level, where if I go into an area and I see an elk, and maybe it's only one bull, like I see one cow, it's one animal, then it's a 1-to-1 ratio where it's like, I went in, did you see anything? Did you log a sighting? Yes or no? If it's yes, that's 100%. Like you saw something.
Right.
Now I could go into that same place and log 30 different sightings. Like I saw one here, I saw one there, I saw one there, but it's still the same 100%. So maybe I go in one time and I see 30, and then I go in a second time and I see 0. It's not going to say, well, you've gone in twice and had 30, so you're still at 100%, because 50%. You have, it's 50%, because it's just based on you went in, did you see one? You went in, did you kill one? And that's the marker, regardless of how many you do. Now, the place that I said I have 100%, I've been in 5 times. I've seen 100% success. I've gone in 5 times, but of those 5 times, I've only had 6 individual sightings. So only on one of those hunts did I see 2 different groups of elk.
Oh.
All the other ones was like, sometimes it was just a single bull, but it's like I still saw a bull. Like I still saw an elk. And so the volume of like how many elk I'm seeing isn't like, I've seen herds in there, but I log that as one sighting. There's another spot that I have like an 86% success of seeing elk. It's only one day of, I don't know, 9 or 10 or 11 days or whatever that I haven't seen elk in that spot. But in those 11 days, I've logged like 26 or 30 kind of sightings. Cause it's like when I'm there, it's like I'm seeing multiple every day that I'm in there. And so I'm going to be more prone to go back to that, because it's like I have more opportunities and more options to go to hunt multiple. If I blow up one thing, the hunt's not over. I can go to the next hill, because I know that there's elk hanging out in pockets all over here. So sometimes, you have those other pieces of like data that you can put in. Like if the other side of that, like an area doesn't have to be this backcountry basin. An area could be your dad's farm kind of a deal. Like it can be, you can draw it on the map, you kind of draw the boundaries of it, and you can share it with somebody, and you can put your notes in there. Like let's say it's my dad's farm, and I say, yeah, Garrett, you can come hunt it, but I can put notes in there as far as like, hey, if you're going to come hunt this, you need to call me first. Does it require like the person's permission? Do you need to ask permission before you go in? You can put like, all right, who do you want to call? What do you need to do? Remember here's the gate code to go into this section, or whatever you need to do. You can make those notes and share that with a buddy. So like people that do like a land lease and they have maybe multiple partners that are in a land lease, it's like every land lease owner should be using this app, and anybody that's leasing it should be participating. That way they know how many guys are in there, when the last time a certain stand was being used. It can clear up so much of that community. They can post a picture like this was the animal that we saw on that day. Cause a lot of times in those land lease where you're hunting a smaller property, they've already named a lot of the deer. They've got trail cameras, like they know like this deer belongs to so-and-so, so I'm not going to shoot them, but did anybody see so-and-so on that hunt? So in a stand or an area kind of a thing, you can log all of those types of things. I think about that with like outfitters that lease different properties. Mark every single property that you lease, and then, do you want to renew that lease versus just looking for the most acreage? It's like, yeah, we go back to this place, we keep leasing this land, but we actually don't see very many animals, and we're not as successful as some of these other pockets that we hunt.
Right.
And an outfitter can have multiple guides all tied in. They don't have to have their clients. They don't have to have any other public people tied into that. They can have all of those things tied in, and then be able to see collected data to make better decisions on what land they want to continue to hunt, pursue, where they want to send their guides, what land that they've been maybe putting a little too much pressure on recently, and they want to kind of make some shifts. Like, hey, this has been productive for us in the past, but we haven't spent much time either scouting it or hunting it this year. So let's send a crew back there, that kind of thing. So
that's cool.
There's a lot of different uses when it starts coming down to that level of like buddies, parties, sharing areas, stands, being able to see recent activity, all of those things that I think are going to be, critical for people.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot more practical use just outside of just competing and stuff. And the more you talk about it, more I can see the potential of it. But I want to kind of get into the competing and the league kind of thing. You have a league, and so I guess run me through a league or a season or whatever. Well, how does that look like? So you have like all the members competing, and then you have a winner or top 5, or how do you guys even choose a winner?
Sure. So what's kind of interesting, the name was called Hunt League from the start, and technically it's been in the App Store since 2018, but like right now, like this conversation is starting to like open the door for like, I'm in the process of now starting to tell people like, hey, this app exists, like download it. You'll love it. Hunting. It's awesome. You can import, export all your data, whatever. But the leagues part, we never even had a league in the app, even though it was called Hunt League. So people that downloaded Hunt League, it's called Hunt League, but there's no competition. There's nothing in here that's actually looks like a league.
Okay.
Until just like April of this year, is actually when the actual functionality of leagues went live. It's been, so you can see like, all right, that's been a part of the dream from the beginning, but it was just a stepping, it's like, we're building the foundation. You got to be able to log a hunt, the way that you want it before you can move to it. That the foundation had to be built and had to be secure before we kind of started adding these other pieces and components. Before you could start sharing hunt logs, we had to make sure the foundation was good. So we kind of built each piece kind of sequentially. We just released leagues, but we did a little bit of a beta test last year with the idea of leagues. And honestly, I really was like kicking myself for this, because it was one of those things where I posted something on Instagram, like, all right, I'm going to, we're going to do an outdoorsman of the year in the Hunt League app. And I'm going to do I'm going to guarantee at least a $1,500 custom prize package. And a $1,500 just meant like in custom means I'm just buying somebody some prizes. I didn't have any sponsors, and I was like, maybe I could pursue sponsors, or maybe I could do some of that. But the reason why I didn't want to pursue a sponsor with that prize package was because it's like, it's open to everybody from every state, hunting all different types of species. So how do you know what somebody needs? Like I could go, like, hey, like last year I bought a Mystery Ranch backpack, and I bought a Initial Ascent backpack, and I have a cube. I have too many packs, like too many bows, all that stuff. So, but it's like I could say, all right, the prize is going to be this Initial Ascent backpack. People are going to love this thing. But if you draw that tag and you hunt, like one of the guys that was a finalist, he duck hunts primarily, and he duck hunts his own land where he just has to walk 300 yards from his house to sit next to a pond. And it's like, great, you got me this like $700 backcountry backpack that's ready to haul out an elk
that I don't need.
Like, like I just grab my decoy bag and walk it out. And like Initial Ascent might say, yeah, we've got a decoy bag that we sell that you can attach to that frame. But it's like, yeah, he just uses a $5 mesh bag. He doesn't need a $700 decoy bag to take his decoys out to the lake. So it's like the needs of every hunter are so different. And what $1,500 could get somebody, it's like, man, somebody could be dreaming of that shotgun that they wanted, or, it's like, what's the thing that like your wife's not going to say yes to, but, or your husband's not going to say yes to, but like, I really want to buy that, like QU just they re-released their sleeping bags again, or they're back in stock. And I saw that today, and it's like, that's one of those, like, it's $800, but I've never been willing to like spend the money to buy it. But it's like, if I won something like that, it would be like right at the top of my list. It's like, I would love to have that $800 bag that I would never buy for myself, that kind of thing. So that was the custom price bag.
Man, that's almost as bad as a Yeti cooler.
Yeah.
I mean, the $800 sleeping bag, Jesus Christ. You must have everything else in life before you buy that. You better have a Bugatti Veyron before you buy an $800 sleeping bag. I mean, I hope you're not sponsored by them or anything, but $800 sleeping bag. There's a company out there, you got me on a rabbit hole. There's a company out there that charges like $300 per head, per broadhead.
Oh, per broadhead.
Yeah, there's like $1,200 batches of arrows. It's like, what the hell are you guys doing?
Yeah.
So,
and how much more accurate is it actually going to shoot?
Zero.
And how much warmer is this bag going to keep me?
Yeah,
this bag?
You could pay me $600 to be cold, and I would do it.
Yeah. No. And the bag, I think the sleeping bag is sensitive because I have used the same bag since I moved to Colorado. It's a 15-degree Eureka, and I don't even know if Eureka makes sleeping bags these days, but it's like this 15-degree, it's starting to get holes in it. And every year I think about like buying a new sleeping bag, and I kind of had my eye on the Stone Glacier one. They've got one that's, I think, is pretty comparable, but it's like $600 instead of $800, which is still like beyond what I want to spend. I'm like, exactly what you said, like, can I get another year out of the bag that was $80 new 15 years ago that is so poorly insulated now? But it's like, yeah, I sleep through the night. I still get it. It still works enough. But back to the leagues, $1,500 prize pack. I posted something on Instagram, and then I forgot to ever talk about it again. And so it came to the end of the year, and I was like, well, crap, I said I was going to do that. So I'm going to do it. And from there, I kind of all right, so how do you pick an outdoorsman gear? And it wasn't a league at this time. This was just we did have a leaderboard, but there was nothing that people signed up for. And so I created a criteria, and I was like, all right, I'm looking for people that have logged at least this many activities throughout the year. And so there were a handful of people that logged, over 10 days in the field.
Okay.
The duck hunter guy in Oklahoma logged over 50 days last year of hunting, and he had a great year. He killed a pronghorn. He killed tons of ducks and geese, killed a coyote, killed a pig, was out of Colorado, lives about an hour north of me. And he killed an elk with a muzzleloader, a deer with a bow, coyotes, pigs, quail, pheasant. You kind of went through it. And it's at the end of the year, he'd killed multiple species with over 5 different methods of take, from crossbow to shotgun to rifle, super versatile.
Mm-hmm.
Then you had another guy in Oregon who was able to his first elk kill with a bow was 2 years ago. Then last year he repeated. It was a smaller bull. He killed I don't know if it was a spike or a smaller bull.
Mm-hmm.
So he wasn't he wanted to repeat and get another big 6x6, but he didn't do that. And so it was an Oregon guy where you're from. And but he also killed a bear with a bow.
What's his name?
Wolfgang Troxel.
Wolfgang Troxel. Shout out to him.
Yeah, Wolfgang, and he's the man. Rogue, Hunt the Rogue is his Instagram. So
Hunt the Rogue. So he's a Southern Oregon guy, probably then, huh?
Probably, because the Rogue is a area, isn't it?
They got Rogue River. Down. It's an hour and a half south of me, hour something.
So for me, that didn't mean anything. But now that you said oh yeah, it's oh yeah, I just gave away all his hunting spots.
Yeah,
so, he killed him.
If you want to kill a big bull, Medford, Oregon.
Go to the Rogue. So Hunt the Rogue, Wolfgang Troxel.
That's a cool name.
And he was using the app and logging his hunts and logging scouts. And there were a couple brothers up in Wisconsin or Minnesota, and there's a handful of people. And so I had a couple people give me input and say, all right, search this name, look at the hunt logs that they posted, and it was totally subjective. But these were the guys I kind of took a first glimpse. All right, anybody that scored in the top 15 on our leaderboard for the year, let's just take a look at their profiles, look at their community posts, and see how engaged they were, what they were doing, and what kind of species they were hunting, and all that. So we kind of narrowed it down from top 15, where it's all right, now let's pick 3 of these guys that kind of stand out to you. And they all finished pretty close to the top. They may have been in the top 5. Those 3 were top 5 on our leaderboard. So we narrowed it down to those. Then we had 3 judges from different states, because I didn't want it to be hey, I'm going to get all the judges. They're going to be my friends from Colorado, and we all have this bent towards elk. It's that's not going to work. So got a guy that was from Texas, got a guy that was from Colorado, but he loves hunting whitetail, and he will probably move to Texas eventually. He spends a lot of time hunting whitetail in Kansas, has killed some really great, beautiful, 180 whitetails. And but he hunts in Alaska. He killed a mountain goat. He's, I think he's trying to figure out the whole Canada thing this year because of COVID and borders and get the vaccine, don't get the vaccine. But I think he's trying to do a moose hunt up there.
You're going to have to. So
he hunts. Yeah. So he hunts all over. So he's pretty versatile. And then I had a guy out of Utah, Spike Bull Outdoors, Keith Naylor. Those were kind of my judges, and we ended up having them all do a live event where we were kind of streaming it, and one at a time. We'd have like the judges panel down low, the candidate kind of up top. One candidate at a time we would have logged in, and like they're just asking questions. And so we put up a clock. You got 20 minutes. We had the candidate fill out a questionnaire, about different things that, so they had submitted stuff that the judges all got to read. And then the judges had questions based on the hunt logs that they saw, based on the post, based on the questionnaire. And they kind of dove into those different things. And then we kind of ended the night without saying a winner because we wanted the judges to kind of have conversations, talk about it. And then I said, all right, by tomorrow morning, I want everybody's list. And so so it has a human component. So you can't just cheat the system, and just like, man, I killed all this, and it's all fake, or there's no pictures, there's no logs. It wasn't done sequentially. It's like, you can't just go one day at the end of the year.
I found 1,500 piles of shit, and I'm going to get a point for each one of them.
That's going to put me ahead.
Yeah.
That's going to put me way ahead.
Yeah, I'm not hunting anymore. I'm just looking for deer turds.
Well, yeah. What do you hunt? Mostly turds.
Yeah. Whatever gets me the points.
Yeah. Any kind. Turkey turds, squirrel turds, rabbit.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Because that's a point, isn't it? Like deer sign or elk sign's a point?
Any sign. So when you're in a hunt, anything that you log a waypoint, you log stuff. And we, we could kind of go into the details of like, all right, let's look behind the curtain. There is a limit within a hunt. There's a limit within a day. There's a limit within a season for the way that all the points work. So, and there's caps on each type of event. So, and there's multipliers that are used, like based on all these other factors that get applied. So if you this is giving away some part of the formula, but it's like, if you were to kill a deer with a rifle versus killing a deer with a bow versus killing a deer with a crossbow versus killing it with a traditional bow, those all have a slightly different point value, plus or minus, 1%, 2%, 3%. So like if everybody logged one event on the same day and they all killed a deer, but they all killed it with a different method of take, there would be a little bit of a ranking order. And that's just because of the multiplier.
Yeah. Well, I agree with that. But that is a slippery slope.
It's totally, and that's why I say.
But I do agree with it.
The point system from the beginning is totally flawed. Like, there's no way to perfect it. There's no way for me to say, well, because you did this, you deserve that.
Because you shot that animal at 1,000 yards, you're going to earn more points than a guy who shot it at 10 yards with a trad, or vice versa.
Totally
impossible task. Impossible.
Yeah. How do you score it?
Yeah.
And
I mean, I'd give more points to the trad guy, but that's just me.
Yeah, but I think you look at it and you also go, the regulations from state to state are so different. Like, how do you account for?
We don't have crossbows here in Oregon. We don't allow them.
In Colorado, you can use a crossbow during rifle season, but you can't do it during bow season. So you can hunt with a crossbow, but it's treated as a rifle.
Interesting.
So those types of things, that's all like, so how do you score that? And then the other thing would be, I don't know, man. Like the point system, like if I showed you the equation that we have for the point system, it is literally like line after line after line after line of this massive, massive equation of if this, then this, if this, then this, do that,
So I guess the way to describe it is that the points get you to the dance, and then it's a human decided winner. Like, so,
yes.
I mean, the best way I could describe it is, man, whose season would I have wanted to have the most? I guess that's how I would decide a winner. Is like, man, if I could pick one of these guys this season, I want the guy that killed the antelope, the deer, the elk, the bear, and did it with this or that. That's kind of how I would decide winners. Like, man, I'd be most happy with that guy's season. But if I killed 60 ducks, and my season, by the way, hinges on whether I kill an elk or not. So I could kill a 180-inch buck, but if I didn't kill a bull, I'm gonna stew on the fact that I didn't kill a bull.
Yeah. Well, here's another important piece to that, though. Like, as we're talking about just point system, and I think part of the initial conversation was, does the guy that shoots a 400-inch bull win? There is no differentiation in the app between a bull that's a barely legal raghorn 4x4 or a spike to the 400-inch. There's no differentiation in the point system based on the size of the animal. There is a differentiation based on the sex of the animal and and only in certain species. And part of the reason why is a biological thing where like a lot of our ratios, because we hunt, even if the birth rate is 50-50 cows to bulls, because we hunt and because they allow you to kill bulls and not cows during certain seasons and things like that, we have ratios in our state where it might be 25 bulls to 100 cows, or 10 bulls per 100. There's always kind of that male versus female kind of in the reports. And the reality is there's a lot less male bucks. There's a lot less bucks than there are does. There's a lot less bulls than there are cows. So there is a little bit of a point advantage of harvesting a bull or a buck over a cow or a doe. And it's not meant to be like we're punishing the person that shoots a cow or we're doing this or that. And I don't really want the point system to be something that people start meditating on or thinking like, how do I rig this point system to fall in my favor? It's like, no, the foundation of the app is capture your story. The point system is an imperfect process that kind of adds value to the app as a whole because it allows us to be competitive. Now, when I say competitive, some people, it's already going to cause the hair on their neck to bristle because it's like, I hate that you're making hunting competition. And it's like,
yeah. And I get that. Like, I get that. And I agree with it.
But think about this though. And I agree at a high level, but you cannot separate competition from hunting because ultimately it is you versus the animal. It is a competition. There's a survival element of like, you cannot separate. Now, can you separate like a prize pool? Because do we want to pay people because they kill more animals? It's like, that's not the purpose of Hunt League. It's not really because you killed so much, you're going to get rewarded so much. That's not really the target. The target is like, because you're a passionate outdoorsman and you're out there telling your story. And we believe that your story is important for the future of our heritage, of our hunting heritage, of conservation. Like our stories and posting our stories is going to be a part of helping lower the barrier of entry. It's going to educate people faster. People are going to want to know like, all right, I'm coming from, Florida and I'm going to hunt in Oregon. And I have no idea what I'm doing when I go to hunt a Roosevelt bull. But because I can kind of look through some of these stories and see what some of these guys from Oregon are doing, because in the community page, I can type in Oregon and just filter for posts that are coming from Oregon. And that'll be a short list. You might only see Wolfgang Troxel in that list at this moment. But, like you'd see like, these are the hunts that happen in Oregon. And if they posted hunt logs, you can go in and just read. And that becomes state specific stuff of like, this is the information I want to like find. I can narrow it down, like only show me the posts that are elk in the state of Oregon. And now I want to see that in the community page. So you can really filter and dial that down to be like, all right, I want to be a student of the game and learn from others that are doing this. And the app allows you to do that both in the leaderboard. You can go to the leaderboard and say like, I just want to see how I compete with other people this year with just my compound bow, or how I did against, I don't care about all the compound bow guys. Like, we talked about the point system and having variation for different like methods of take or whatever. I could go in and say, I don't care where I'm at. I want to know how I did as a traditional bow hunter against other traditional bow hunters. And you can select that on our leaderboard and it'll just pull up people that did traditional bow. Or you can say, I want to do traditional bow with a single species. You can't do multiple, but traditional bow with a bear. How did I rank against all the other hunters that hunted with the traditional bow for bear? And you can kind of see that score. And that way you kind of have a marker, like, how am I doing? Like, my season sucked this year. Like, how did other people do? And it kind of gives you a little bit of like a gauge, and then you can just narrow it down to like, I want to see, like, am I the only person that hasn't seen a freaking elk in 3 weeks? You know, like, and it lets you kind of see behind, you know, the wall there and be like, okay, you can learn a lot from other people.
Is there any points for practicing and training?
There will be.
Okay.
And so the stuff that I actually have a few things that I want to kind of integrate points in for.
Mm-hmm.
And like this year, last year there were 3 of us that went in. We were supposed to do an 8-day hunt. We lasted 5 days because the other 2 guys we really went hard. We were in elk and we were in really tough terrain. One guy's like Achilles tendons were both like at a point where like he couldn't, and he had bought new boots and he was like, I don't know if it's the new boots. I don't know if it's the terrain. I don't know if it's the lack of training with a pack on the terrain. Like, I don't know what's happening, but he's like, even if we got something, I don't feel like I could help pack it out. I don't like, and the other guy, tough than nails. Like, he's done an Ironman, like full on, you know, it's like the most grueling of physical things. And he was like, I've never had to tap out of anything before physically where I felt like I couldn't go.
Really?
And he's like, we walked down this terribly steep, we'd never been in this area. We were in elk late at night, and then we had to get back to camp, and we were going down something that we should not have been going down, but we got kind of stuck on the hillside, and his knees like blew up on him. Like, and it was just like, he's like, I took some wrong steps, hammer, you know, and got hurt. So we ended up having to pack out early, even though it's like, I've never been in more elk in my life. And you're saying like, we're packing out early. Like,
yeah.
And so that it was rough, but even like documenting those types of things, that's like super important. I don't even remember where we were going, like what you said that led me to like talking about,
training and shooting.
Oh yeah. Training. But like, so this year I've been on to those guys big time on the training. And like, I just crossed 150 workouts for the year. And I've been documenting, you know, you can probably tell, like, I'm the guy that's going to document stuff, and like, I'm methodical, and like, my goal is like, I want to be at 200 for the year, which like, that's not actually, you know, that's like, for some people, that's not even that much. I'll be at 200 like last month. I was like, could I get to 200 before season starts? I was like, that might be a new target for me.
Right.
But hit 150 just this past week, 150 workouts for the year. And there's different things for me what qualifies as a workout, but it's like, I want to be able to document that so that I know when I go into season and I look back, it's like, no, I went into this more physically prepared this year than I did this year. And I was able to cover more miles, and I was able to do this, and this. And I want to be able to do that with, and you may have experienced this too, but like, even in your training and target shooting, like, I've had some years where, like 2 years ago when I killed that 5x5 that I was bugling back and forth with, I literally was debating if I could take more than a 20-yard shot. And the year before, I had the 5 fixed pin sight. I was 60, and I would have taken a 60-yard, even a 70-yard shot without hesitation. Felt like, man, I could hit, you know,
right.
I could hit what I'm aiming at out all the way out. But I had a shoulder injury. I ended up having to add all sorts of weight on stabilizers up front, weight on the back. And I was really trying to compensate because I had no stability in my shoulder. And if I had to hold my draw for more than 5-10 seconds, like, it was screaming pain. I had a cortisone shot right before the season. They were trying to do surgery. And I was like, and I'm not a proponent of like cortisone, like, but I was like, I don't want to do surgery because it'll ruin my season. I can't use my left arm, you know, like, but it's the only way. So I knew my limitations. I was like, it's 20-yard, maybe a 30-yard if everything is perfect and I have the strength in that moment to like deliver. But it was like, I'm not even drawing at a 40-yard shot. But thankfully that year, like, he came straight in. I took a frontal shot at 8 yards.
Oh, nice.
And it was over. And I was like, I can't miss. Like it's right here. I cannot miss this shot, even as bad as my shoulder is. Like, but I have years where like sometimes your training is impacted. So I want to have, and like going into the season, what your limitations really should be. And it changes for me year to year. I've had some years where 40 yards is where I want to be. Some years it's like, no, I feel good out to 70, even though I'm shooting a 60 pin sight.
I think I lost you there for a second.
Training days, shooting days, all those things, other types of activities. Sorry. So I'm just saying I will have some of those other types of activities integrated.
Yeah. So I guess my next question is, I saw that when I downloaded the app, I saw that Guy was on there. And he said, when I talked to him today, he said he's blowing kisses your way or something like that. So I don't know if that's some sort of inside thing you guys got going on there, but
no, Guy was like, I don't know how on earth Guy found Hunt. It's like, unless you go to the app store and type in Hunt League, it's not gonna like. It's like, did you just randomly somehow you started typing in hunting and then you were going to type in Major League Baseball or something else?
Right.
And you combine that and then discovered it. But he somehow got on it and called me. He's like, dude, this is sweet. Like, I love this. Mm-hmm. And he's like, would you be willing to do a podcast? And at the time I was like, I've never done a podcast. And I don't know that I'm like totally ready for it to be like public, but I was like, we might as well, just because it'll probably get us. But he was just starting too at the time. Like he was just starting Western Contours. It was not what it is today back then.
Yeah.
But we've kind of stayed in touch, and he's been coming out to Colorado, and I've kind of hoped that our circles, like, it's like, can we make our hunt camp kind of
the same
eventually line up?
Yeah. And, he's a cool dude, man.
He is, and so I'm excited to see him on the app. I hope this year, like, he jumps back in and, logs all of his stuff.
Well, is it possible to make your own, like, private among buddies league? Not have to make it a public one where you're competing with all the users, but you can make a private league. So, like, I could compete against Guy only.
Yeah, I love it. Yes. Yeah, you can do. So a league can be either public or private.
Okay.
And the idea of public means, so there's a couple different ways. Like, you can create a league, and we have leagues where a league could be created. Like, there's different, it's not necessarily like different tiers, but a league could accommodate anything from your massive nonprofit, meaning Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation could have their own league within the app. And then they could say, the only way that you could be in this league is you have to be an RMEF member. And so you have to put your member number in, and then we would just verify. And it could just be RMEF members in this league. Then it would allow people like, hey, you can comment, you can see other people that are doing stuff. You could have that. You could have a local archery shop say, hey, we want to host a league, and we want it just to be for the guys that are a part of our archery shop. And it could be either by private invitation, or when somebody tries to join the league, the administrator of the league has to kind of approve them coming in. So you could have it set up like that. Or like in Hunt League itself, we have 4 leagues listed right now, where there's the overall, like, outdoors of the year, counts all different species, all different states. Or we have one that's the Western Hunter. And the Western Hunter, in order for it to work, it's only certain Western big game animals, plus it's only people that have hunted in certain states. So if you kill an elk, but you killed it in Kentucky, it doesn't count in the Western Hunt League. Like, so it's not just the species that matters. So you can break down a league and make a league where it's like, I only want to do archery in this league. I only want to do traditional archery in this league. And so if you wanted to do something where you wanted to create a custom league, absolutely. I'm the only one that can build the league on the back end. Like, you as a user can't create a league in the app. You can create a hunting party in the app. So you could invite Guy and any of your buddies to be a part of a party and share information within a party.
Yeah.
But you would have to submit what you want in the league and who you want to be involved or included for it to be an actual, like, league in the app that people can either discover or.
So if I wanted to create my own league, it would have to go through the admin, you, and then you would have to approve a private league.
Yeah. And I would there's one questionnaire Right now, that questionnaire is not like public because we just kind of launched leagues. But there's one questionnaire that has all the requirements, so you just check the boxes. Do you want it? Do you want it to be rifle, all methods of take? Do you want it to be just archery? Do you want it just to be compound bow and traditional?
Right.
Do you want it to just be elk? Do you want it to be just deer? So you can. Are dogs allowed to be used? Can you use a guided hunt?
Yeah.
Can it include a high fence ranch? Can it? You have the ability to like completely dictate what you want the rules of your league to be. And once you have that, you can select like on the leaderboard, you can go to the filter and then like hit which league. And so if you had a league going, you can push the filter and it'll just filter based on all the criteria of your league, who's actually winning that league. Like who based on the leaderboard.
Okay. So naturally,
yes,
my next question is if I wanted to get a bunch of content creators, talk a massive amount of shit, invite them to the Hunt League, and then somehow have a winner after the season's over, theoretically speaking, I could do that.
Theoretically speaking,
right.
You could not only do it, you would have to challenge them at the core of their humanity because they would actually be exposed to say like, did you actually have a good season or are you all talk? But because ultimately it's like, all right, how many days did you spend in the field? And it will be, if you're in the league, it's visible. Did you have a good day or a bad day? Because now it's going to be visible. So I think if you're ready to call people to the carpet and say like, all right,
like Guy or Jim Huntsman or Mike Batiste,
come on,
or AJ from Knights of the Apex.
Let's see Mike Batiste like
chasing Moby.
You talk all about your your breeding sequence and all your stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like I love listening to his podcast, and I'm always like, man, I got to get better at this whole like breeding sequence. And Guy's all about following that playbook. And but I'm like, all right, I've never done the breeding sequence and the glunking and the whole. I'm like, I don't know, but I would love to see guys like that put in like, all right, no, don't just tell me that's what you did. Record your breeding sequence that you're doing in the field on the audio note, what time of day you did that.
That'd be cool.
And what kind of response you got, and let us see it. You don't have to tell me where it happened, but tell me how it happened. And I want to know what the response actually was. I've heard you tell the stories, but I want to see it and I want to hear it with my own ears. And I'm like, no, like let's do it. And you got a guy like Dan Stanton, like the elk-shaped guy.
Yep.
I've listened to some of his stuff, and it's actually challenged me because he's not like a call guy. He's more of a spot and stock guy. I don't know that he doesn't use calls, but I've listened to some of his like what he really wants to do is like, I want to sneak up on a bull and do it because I saw it and I made the play and I got myself in a position to win. And I'm like, all right, that's bad. And like that's become something that like I've rolled around in my mind of like, we've called bulls in and we've killed bulls, but I've never snuck in on a bull that I spotted and I put the stock on. And it's like, okay. And that gave me like my own challenge. And I'm like, all right, that's like on my bucket list of things to do. So now there's going to be scenarios where I see the elk and I'm like, I'm putting my calls away, even though like I feel like I could call and I could create something here because now I'm challenging myself as a hunter to accomplish something I've never done.
That's cool.
I kind of want to log that. Tell the story of it.
Well, the last Rosie I killed was actually a spot and stock, and I actually videoed the whole thing on Instagram. So it is possible, like there's a Instagram story where you could actually chronologically follow along, and I'm videoing it as I'm waiting for him to stand up because he was in the middle of a unit, and that was pretty cool. But it would. Is this something that people could follow, like our listeners and Instagram followers? Could they all follow along and then just watch and see how much we're getting? Because there was 2 weeks when the year I shot that big bull, there was 2 weeks where I didn't see an elk for 2 straight weeks. I mean, I was out in the woods almost every day. Actually, I was in the woods every day. So it'd be cool for people to see how much we struggle before we find success, if we find success,
See, I love that because I think it takes some of the mystery out because what we see on YouTube, what we see on Facebook, what we see on Instagram, we're posting most of the success stories. Sure, you can show like the wallow picture or the rub or, the other little pieces. but the stories, the edited down versions of our hunt come down to the 20 minutes that mattered the most, and it's
Right.
like, that's what the world sees. And then people are left to believe, well, that's what elk hunting is like. It's like this 20 minutes that I've seen of this guy, or this guy is such a good elk hunter. This is the difference between me and him. I didn't see an elk until my third year of elk hunting. I didn't see a single elk. And I covered, in those 3 years, I probably covered over 100 miles on foot, cruising basins and like crushing the ground underneath me.
Yeah.
And I never saw an elk. And it's like, but I didn't know what to look for when I was scouting. I didn't know how to read the terrain, but I was finding, I'm starting to find fresh scat versus just all old stuff. It was a learning process. I had nobody to kind of like learn from. And what the Hunt League app has done is, like, I've been able to go, like, there's a group of 3 guys coming up from Texas this year that are going on their first ever elk hunt. They're scared out of their mind, thinking of, like, they don't know what they're doing. It's like, I love that anticipation, the excitement. They're like, do I have all the right stuff? Do I have they're asking all the questions.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of the day, like, I'm sharing my hunt logs. I'm even showing them information. I'm walking on the maps. Like, here's what they did. And it's making all of it feel more accessible, more attainable. And I actually invited them to apply for the same unit. And I was like, guys, I'm going to be scouting in this unit. I will tell you where I'm seeing elk. So before you get here, because you don't have the time to scout, like, I'm going to help you guys be successful. Like, I'm bought in. So we're doing Skype calls or FaceTime calls and like working through it. But that's been a super cool thing. But it's like, having those logs is giving them the ability to kind of jump in and see it. But then when you talk about all the content creators jumping in and doing that, it's like, you're going to give people access to something they have never had access to, that I think people actually crave. We want the real story. Like, you guys talk on podcasts and you talk about scouting. What does a day of scouting look like for you? How many hours are you actually out there? Like, how do you guys create that much time to get away from jobs, to get away from family, to get away from stuff, to go and do this? It's like, how does it actually work? And then they start seeing, like, oh, he's doing that on the weekends, or he's doing that always, like, after work. He's doing that from 6 to 9 o'clock at night. He's, like, that's how they're making it work. And it's going to make those types of things. Like, if I want to become a better elk hunter, or I want to become a better deer hunter, a better bear hunter, like, the information that is going to be visible, that is private. Like, again, like, nothing gets shared unless you share it. And anything you share, you can unshare or delete, like, so you have control of your data. And again, there's nothing that gets posted to the massive community or the public facing side that contains GPS or location information. So all of that's going to be private, but it's like, bringing you guys as content creators. I mean, the ultimate thing is to, like, no, we're trying to remove barriers, and we want intimacy with the people. We want that with our audience. We want them to feel like they actually get to see and know, and they're learning from,
right,
like, what we're doing. It's like, this opens up an avenue like nothing else out there. Like, there's nothing else out there that's going to allow this level of intimacy with people to be able to follow and see the day-to-day details of your hunt. So
right.
I can't wait. I can't wait for some of these people that even do TV shows and stuff, where they start using this to communicate with their, with the people that are following their stories. And,
right.
We've seen the post that you posted about here's the trail camera picture of the deer you're chasing. Like, how many days in the season did you actually see that? Or how many days did you sit in that stand before it actually walked through? Because all we usually see is, here's the tree, here's the trail cam footage, and then here's the kill shot, with holding the trophy. And it's like,
right, that doesn't tell the whole story. And I feel like that's an aspect that's been missing. And honestly, I just love talking shit and feeling tags. That's just what I like to do. I like to talk shit and hunt. And if I can, talk a bunch of shit to a bunch of friends that I don't get to see very often, that'll just let us, keep in contact even more and be a part of each other's seasons, even when though we're not there. We're following along and we're just being more closely, knit during hunting season when everybody's off doing their own thing. I think that would be, not only would it be cool just to see what the other guys do and how many miles they cover and stuff, but I mean, you got guys like Joe Giglia Elk Bros, and
Yeah.
him and I, he's a killer. He's an elk killer. I mean, the guy kills a lot of elk, and
for a lot of years,
yeah,
the dude's killed a lot of elk.
yeah, and we're pretty opposite in the styles and the gear and stuff. And it's just like I'd love to learn from that guy, and being able to see what his day to day looked like, or how many miles he covered, or how many. For me, it's, I've heard some guys, like Paul Medell, he's like, if I see or if I hear an elk and he talks to me, he's dead. I'm like, man, that's a bold statement, because it may take me.
A whole lot of elk that I've never
yeah,
on the ground.
yeah. And for me, it's like, man, I'm shooting like if I have an encounter, and I call it an encounter, like if I have an opportunity where a bull's in bow range and we're playing that back and forth, or we're doing that 150-yard dance where you close into 80 and then he's at 200 and then you're at 150 to 80 to 200, doing that thing like a Rocky does. How many times do I have to do that until I get a shot or I kill a bull? And me and my buddy got it figured out for every. Through the years that we've hunted over in Eastern Oregon, me and Mitch, for every 4 days we hunt, on average, we will get a shot every 4 days.
A shot?
A shot every 4 days.
Not an encounter, a shot.
Correct, a shot every 4 days.
Bro.
Yeah.
I would just tell you, like, that's humongous. Like, that's phenomenal.
Well, it took years to get to that point, right?
Let's say that's your most recent statistic.
Well, I mean, that's and Rosie's is not that. It is like 1 to 2 shots a year, and I'm out almost every day, and if I get a shot, I'm like, I got my shot. I'm gonna keep plugging away, but I got my shot, and so but when we're out there hunting Rockies over there, it's like, okay, like day 5 and we haven't got a shot. I'm like, oh, it's coming. Today's probably the day.
Tomorrow.
Or I feel like the odds are getting greater and greater because we're just, it's just like we figured it out every 4 days, and almost like clockwork. It is almost every 4 days we get a shot.
Well, it's interesting, like you're talking about it, because one of the things, there's only a few species in the whole app that has something called an encounter. Like there's an event, so there's a sighting. Mm-hmm. There's all the other events, but elk is one of those, deer is one of those that has like an encounter button. And it's kind of a funky thing because it's like, well, what's the difference between like an encounter and a sighting? And like you explained it, it's like I have sightings where I see elk and they're on a ridge,
right?
But I'm not within range. Like an encounter to me is like, I'm within range where this could happen. Like this could happen any second. And it's like, because I've heard, from like, I don't know if I read this or it was kind of discussed, but somebody kind of gave a statistic. Like it's about every 14 days before you have elk hunting in Colorado that you have that encounter. And I was like,
oh really? What? It's that bad?
Like that. Somebody's kind of gave me that. And I was like,
wow.
And I don't know if that means it ends in a shot or something like that.
Yeah.
But you do that over the whole. We're not doing this over the Garrett Weavers out there that have been practicing and studying this all year. We're talking about the guys that broke out their bow, blew the dust off, and then went out. And it's like the woods are full of over-the-counter guys that go through a whole season.
Right.
They don't venture very far from their truck. They're hoping just to call something in. And it's like they can do that day after day in the same place that other people are parked 100 yards down the road doing the same thing. It's like, they didn't have any encounters, whatever. But I heard like the macro of that was like 14 days. And one of the things that I put in there in the app is that encounter event, mm-hmm. because I wanted it to be something where you could actually track, like, what does it take to get an encounter with an elk? And I want to know my personal encounter rate
exactly
versus like the other guys that I hunt with. And I'm like, and I can go through my logs and be like, all right, like last year I had 2, what I would call encounters back to back within 30 minutes of each other, where I stocked up and I just had a bull that I knew he was feeding behind this tree, and I was sneaking up this creek bed to get up to him. And then I'm locked in looking at this tree thinking the bull is here, but I was so focused on being quiet, like going in, I had my head down that bull fed up on this little side and was behind these other bushes. And my buddy's sitting back filming with his iPhone. And he's like, no, Jared, draw. And I hear him later, as he's showing me the video, and my eyes are locked this way, and the bull's off to my left.
Oh.
And And then all of a sudden I hear something, and like he was 20 yards from me, like broadside. But then at that point he's looking right at me, and it was over. And I was like, no. And so I was super frustrated, but then I was like, all right, let's keep walking. So we walk around this corner, and then we go in there, we end up sneaking into this herd. And then another thing happens where like there were some hikers up on a ridge, or like you just heard this lady's voice. They were actually mountain biking on like a ridge, like a couple hundred yards from us. So I was like, oh, look, there's some elk over there. And like, I mean, I'm like any moment from drawing back, and like there's 7 cows right out here, and there's a herd bull that's bugling right in the trees beyond them. And I'm like, this is the moment. Like, it's all about to happen. I'm so glad that I didn't shoot the bull right behind me, because he was like a small like raghorn. And I was like, this is about to be epic. And then you hear that, and then all the bulls just flood out. And I was like, oh my gosh. But I had 2 of those like back to back. It's like, all right, how many of those moments do you have in a season? Like, how many do you have? How many days between, and it's like, ultimately, I think part of the competition for me is I want to shorten the number of days between encounters. Like,
exactly. Efficiency.
That's my goal.
Be more efficiency. Yeah. And I'm all down for learning. Like, we just went back and kind of were thinking throughout the years, because we're like, man, there was years where we didn't get a shot, and like a few years in a row, like, man. And, it took me 6 or 7 years before I finally got it done on a bull with a bow. Like, holy crap, that I made it. I made it the hardest way possible. I mean, had a guy teaching me how to hunt rosies, but I spent 2 years and I never got to draw my bow back on hunting rosies. And then I don't think I ever drew my bow back hunting with him, but he taught me so much. And I'm like, man, like, there is probably 6 years. I'm not going to say I wasted, but like, just not even understanding what was going on when I was even in the vicinity of a bull or an elk, or like, I was just so dumb. Naive, and and like, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know anything. I was learning it all on my own, right? And Willie was just teaching me how to get into them. He wasn't teaching me what to do when you finally got into them.
Yeah, once you're there.
Yeah,
like that's one of the things that like the Elk Bros guys talk about. And it's like they start their course with like finishing the moment. It's like,
I call it the red zone.
Seal the deal.
Yeah,
like once you're in that zone, like what needs to be going through your head? What's your routine and rhythm? Because I think we work so hard to get to that zone, and all of our focus and attention is on that. But then once we're there, we make the most. And that is where, right. I mean, what your story right there, it's like, I mean, I can relate, because it's like, I didn't shoot. Let me see. My first shot came in 2012. I think I told you I was hunting 2007, or even maybe 2008 was my first year. So it was like I was 5 or 6, 7 years in before I took my first shot at a bull, and hit it. The bull ran away, arrow sticking out about 15 inches on the other side of it, and everything was perfect. Went up, called my buddy, was like, I got a bull, come in, help me, let's find it and pack it out. And then they got into me at 2 a.m, and we started looking, and we never found a drop of blood. And I went from the highest of highs to low. I mean, we walked around for 10 hours, and I never found a drop of blood, never found anything. And I thought I heard him crash. Like, I thought I saw the arrow sticking out, everything. It's like, I still to this day
don't know what happened. Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know how to fix that. Like, and we grid searched it, we circled, and it's like, so but saying what you're saying, like going 7 years and not ever, it's like didn't kill a bull, it's like, yeah, that's elk hunting. And, I don't think people realize the work that goes into it, but I think after you put in those years,
they start falling.
It's like, and the time between encounters, the time between shots, all those things start going shorter and shorter. But I think if we can help expedite that learning curve, because we're sharing our stories and showing people and like helping people kind of figure out what they need to be, or like where they need to be, when they need to be there, what, and they get to learn from us in a different way, then it's not just sharing a spot. Like, here's a location, go to this location, you'll get an elk. And it's not just sharing like, here's how I killed it, here's the story of everything that went into it. It's like, no, everything that went from the scouting to leading up to the moment, and you get to read that in the hunt logs, you get to see it, it's a new glimpse into something that I can't wait to share.
Hmm.
And I really love the idea of doing that league with some of these content creators, because it's like, I want people to be able to see the ups and downs of our years. Like, we don't always have the best year. We don't always get to finish the year killing that goal, but it's like,
it would be fun to like have like judges and to have like, or even the viewers or subscribers or listeners, whatever the hell you want to call them, folks vote on it. It's not. I think it's hunting. It's people have their favorite content creators, but I think when it comes to being, like, I believe they're not going to be biased when they're choosing a winner. They're like, man, this guy had a really good season. Like, I think if you let the listeners or the viewers, or the folks, whoever, choose the winner, I think that'd be kind of cool.
Oh yeah, dude, we're doing it.
Yeah,
let's do it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna start talking shit right now.
No, that idea, I've never even heard that idea. Like, that idea is like, oh my gosh, yeah, heck yeah, let's do that league. You tell me the name of the league.
Yeah,
let's get a handful
video of this,
and then we could, like, right now it would be, if somebody joins the league, everybody who's joined the league is competing in the league. So you're almost adding a second tier where you're saying, I want the content creators to be in the league, but I want other people to participate in the league with us. So right now we could set it up where the leaderboard it shows, like, even the person that's listening to you, am I having a better season than Garrett Weaver is right now? Right. Am I having a better
That'd
season
be cool.
than Guy? And it's like, hey, they're getting to compete with you guys too, to see, like, all right, who's having the best year? But at the end of that, we still have the way to filter out, like, all right, these are the admins of the league. These are the content creators. And ultimately, like, if you're the guy, and I would just say, like, look, let's knight you right now. You're going to be that guy that goes and chases and helps fill that league. And it's like, or you and Guy, like, you, Guy, and Jim, like, get on the phone together and say, like, all right, the three of us are going to take this on. Let's invite, like, the guys that we want to participate in that. You give me that list, and we'll make all those guys admins in the league. If you're an admin, you can send a message in the league, but anybody who's in the league is going to receive that message. So if all of you guys are admins, you're the only voices that can be heard in the chat or in the thread. So you guys can talk all the smack publicly. Nobody else can chime in, and we can't vote or do anything to like your comments or whatever, because it's just, we're watching a text message thread. But we could set all you guys up as admins for the league, where you guys get to see each other's thread, or you communicate in it, and then everybody else gets to kind of participate. But then everybody that's in the league, their activities are going to be posted in there, so you can tag your own, like, all your hunt logs, all your stuff will be in there. And you can see, like, all right, how did my season compare against Guys? How did my season compare against Jim Huntsman? And we're all hunting, whether you're in Idaho where he's at, or you're in California where Guy's at, and having to travel because you can't get a tool elk tag, like, it's like, good luck ever drawing that. Right. I feel bad. Someday though, he'll move to Colorado. Like,
well,
he'll be done with the lockdowns.
I'm excited because I just want to, be able to connect with all my friends online and stuff more, and then also be able to just have fun, just have fun and I guess compete, but just have fun and talk shit. That's what's fun. I mean, honestly. And so I guess, so if somebody wanted to download the app, walk me through that. So they just go onto the Apple Store, they download the app on there.
Go to the App Store, download Hunt League. You have to you can type it in as 2 words or 1 word. Hunt League. Sometimes I wish league was an easier word for people to spell, because sometimes people misspell that. It's League. But you type in Hunt League. That's about the only way you're going to find the app. Is like, it's called Hunt League. It's in the App Store. Got to type it in.
Interesting.
You can type in hunting apps, and you're going to get every other one before, just because it's like, we haven't made this public yet. We've been beta testing it. We've been kind of running it in the background. We just released the leagues, but at this point, it's like, all right, I was hoping we were ready to have Android out earlier this year. It's not ready. If you're an Android guy listening to this and you want to sign up for, like, hey, put me on the beta list, put me on this, because I'm going to try to get it out as fast as I can. And one good thing is you can add hunts. You can go to your hunt logs, and I can add, there's a button at the bottom right of a hunt log section where you can push add new. and you can create a hunt log from scratch. Like, so if I wanted to say like, all right, I remember this hunt that I did in 2017, it was back in this basin, it'll ask you like, where do you want the starting location of the hunt to be, where, and you can fill in all the details. You could bring in your onX waypoints, your base map waypoints, whatever, dump them in, and you could go back and go, okay, all these points are from this day that I spent in the field. So I'm going to go back and create a hunt log now and associate all these points kind of together with this hunt, create the time that it happened. So if you're an Android guy and Android comes out before the end of the year, if you kind of somewhat make notes or like have an idea, I mean, you can even use your onX right now and use your base map, and it'll tell you the date that you did it. It'll tell you, and so you will be able to bring some of that stuff over and kind of fill in the gaps of a hunt log. It may not be to the same extent that you'd have it if you have an iOS app right now, or an iPhone. So we will have that available. But if you want to go to the huntleague.com website, there's a little thing that says join the Android beta test team. You can click that, put your email address in, and then as we make progress with Android, we'll send out an email to you saying, hey, we've got a beta version ready for you to test. So if you want to be kind of a first adopter or whatever, they can kind of jump in and test that. If they're joining and they sign up and they're creating an account, there's a promo code that you can enter at the very top of it. And any person can use their username as a promo code, and it will unlock the person's app, the league pass on their app, where you can join leagues and add buddies and all that, for 30 days if you put that person's promo code in. So what is your username in the app? Like, tell people what your username is.
I think just Garrett Weaver is what I made it.
Is there a space? Is it?
Yeah, Garrett space Garrett. Let me look. Garrett space Weaver, I think.
Okay. Spell that out for people that are listening.
So GARRETT space Weaver, capital G, capital W. So just formally Garrett Weaver.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm
so
a
if
hunter.
They type in Garrett Weaver.
Hunter 141, I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
I suck.
ranked 41st right now at the moment.
Oh yeah.
That's just because you haven't started entering logs yet. So.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
So I guess so. There's a. I'm a little confused on the promo code. So if somebody wanted to find the league that I'm going to create with my other buddies and stuff, how would they find that?
Okay, we need a name for it. So if somebody types in Garrett Weaver and uses that as the promo code, it will send you an email saying so-and-so signed up, and that'll give us an opportunity where I could see it, you could see it, and we could potentially follow up with an email or a text in the app itself and say, hey, here's the league. Like, so if we don't have the name of the league, which right now we're brainstorming, coming up with it. Yeah. So, but there will be a league, and you can call it the Garrett Weaver, whatever league. Yeah. And people, the way that you'd find that is you can go to the main menu and hit leagues, or you can go to the community page. In the top right, there's a little icon that takes you to the community page. And then in the bottom menu, there's a tab that's leagues. It'll show you any league that you're eligible to join. And so if you have one, you can click that league and it'll give you the details. So that would be where you're going to come up with a description of like, here's what the league is. Here's what we're counting or qualifying in the league to participate. If there's any prerequisites before you join the league, you have to do this, this, or this. You can create all of that up front, and then they would just simply hit join. The only thing you have to have is the League Pass subscription to join leagues. And that the League Pass subscription, when you download the app, it's free to download.
Okay.
You have everything that you need there for one species. So a lot of people that are just like, I'm just a deer hunter, I'm just an elk hunter, you'll be fine. But that's a private hunting journal that you get when you just download the Hunt League app, and that's the free version. It's not because it's ad free or not. There's no ads really in the app. Like, it's just, there's a home page that has a couple sliders. So whether you have the free one or whether you have the League Pass, it's not because you're getting like bombarded with ads on either one. We're not doing any of that in the app. It's the ability to connect in community, share hunt logs, add buddies, join parties, join leagues, all of that stuff is what the subscription part is. And that's $14.99 a year to do the League Pass subscription. The good news is anybody that joins this year, last year, our league winner, who I said, like, yeah, we'll make a custom prize package. It'll be worth about $1,500. We ended up giving almost $8,000 worth of prizes to our top 3 guys. And the guy that won the Outdoors of the Year, he got Vortex's top of the line. It was a $3,700 Razor AMG scope. He got an 18 by 56 because he was thinking he was going to do a bighorn sheep hunt. Got an 18 by 56 Razor binoculars, like their UHD line, like top quality stuff. And this year, Vortex has jumped in with the Outdoors of the Year and said, look, the winner of the Outdoors of the Year, they've been fantastic. They saw what we were doing, like, hey, we're all in. And they said the winner of this year's Outdoors of the Year, we're going to let them, because we understand they could be from anywhere in the country and their needs might not be the same. So we're not just going to give them, like, here's an item. It's like we're going to let them choose one item from our entire catalog. So,
wow. Holy crap.
Like, if you need a new rangefinder, you need a new scope for that 1,000-yard rifle you're building, you need a set of binoculars to take you out Western hunting, whatever you want from Vortex Optics, choose the item of your choice, and Vortex is going to send that to the Outdoors of the Year this year. And we've had a couple other companies, like we talked about fly fishing. Moonshine Rods is an awesome fly rod company that I went to college with the 2 guys that kind of started that. And so we've just been talking, and I told you kind of my first passion was fishing before hunting completely consumed me. But with that, like that fishing, they're jumping in and they're giving their nicest rod away to the Outdoors of the Year, and then several rods to the people that are in second and third. And the Western Hunting League gets this Midnight Special rod, which is like one of the most beautiful fly rods you've ever seen. So it's like super cool prizes for these different leagues. So there's a Bucks and Ducks league, which is, I think of more as your Midwest guy, but you could be a California guy that's just on the Pacific Flyway, Oregon, you got Bucks and Ducks, you can compete with that. So there's a Bucks and Ducks. And so obviously that one's only focusing on bucks and ducks. It's not geese. It's not other stuff. There's a waterfowler that is all your waterfowl species. So you can do a waterfowler league. So if you're a big time duck hunter, goose hunter, there's a waterfowl league. There's a Western Hunt League, which is basically your Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, New Mexico, and West. And it only counts certain species. All that stuff is listed, though. Like when you look at the league details, you can see what are the prizes for this league, how many people are competing in it, who's done recent activity. Because you see, if you're in that league and you just performed a hunt, it's going to show up in the league as so-and-so just completed a hunt, so-and-so just completed a scout, that kind of thing. And you can see that in the league to kind of keep track of stuff, which that's going to be awesome once season rolls around, because then you can start celebrating with people like, dude, congratulations on that bull. Like, like that's going to be fun. Like when you talk about like all the guys that are in your circle and talking, back and forth and competing with each other, like people are going to see, all right, who's been out there and who got it done, and
that'd be cool.
That's gonna be pretty fun.
Well, I'll work on getting a hold of some of the guys and start throwing some challenges out there. But it would be it does cost money. It costs $15. Will it cost the $15 to follow our league, or to be? So it'll cost $15 to be in our league.
To join it doesn't cost $15 to join the league. It's all the leagues are a part of it. So to join the league, yes. To follow no.
Okay.
Like it'll send a note. And
so
like
somebody
could you post on the community. Okay. People that are all the free users can see that in the community page.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah, and I'm not, like this is all. If somebody's sitting there going like, man, I can't afford the $15, this year. It's like, hey, just like I'm not in that spot where I'm not trying to like penalize the person that's just getting started or fresh out of college, whatever. So if you need some financial support, need some help, just hit me with that email support@huntleague.com. I'll support you. I'll help you.
Yeah.
The vision of this is not to try to like, be just that extra added cost for all hunters, but there's a lot of fun. There's a lot of value that you're going to get from it. And the $15, Apple and Google take their fair share of it, and then really it just is going to cover our server costs and costs to keep all the stuff updated in the app. I mean, the development costs, the ongoing stuff, it's just going to help kind of cover that. So
right.
That's my intention. And that's my goal with even charging a subscription is
and
just doing that.
You have the opportunity to win like thousands of dollars in gear. How many users do you have currently? Because you haven't even launched this thing yet, right?
No,
technically.
No, not really. I'm meeting with the marketing guy today.
Mm-hmm.
I have a phone call at a marketing company, and then I got another one next Tuesday. So I'm just in the pre-conversations about connecting with some marketing companies. I haven't done anything with social media, like other than like the account that I manage, so I mean, there's a few hundred people that have gone to the App Store and typed in Hunt League and downloaded the app. And of those couple hundred, there's a lot of those people that downloaded it and then haven't reopened it or relooked at it in a while. So it's like your odds of winning something really phenomenal
actually pretty good.
Are pretty dang good this year going into this. But I would say like, this year we're going to start letting people know about it. We've never let people know about it. We're going to start inviting people, say, hey, iOS is ready. Leagues are ready. We're ready to start. And there's a little bit of an urgency for me on some of it because like specifically, if I could, I would have 10,000 users in the state of Colorado. Like this is a big deal to me. I would have 10,000. If I could dream this up, I want elk hunters all over the state of Colorado logging their hunts in the app because I want their stories to be documented and I want us to have some experiential data. It's not like this hard line scientific data, but it's this experiential data of people in the field because we've all heard the stories of how things were better before this happened or before that happened.
Before wolves.
Colorado is about to introduce wolves.
Yep.
And I think it's critically important that we get the word out and like get people documenting their stories, logging things, sharing it with the community. And then we do a little bit of looking back on some of that data and say, okay, 5 years ago, this is what people were experiencing in the elk woods of Colorado. Now, 5 years after they've introduced wolves, this is what the landscape looks like. Part of the thing that I'm bummed about is like, no, I don't have 50 users from Colorado logging hunts this year. So you lose this power of that story in the data pool. But you lose the power of that data pool if you don't have the users. And it's like, man, how powerful would this story be if we can start capturing that story right now? And we're getting people, and this goes to you in Oregon. You guys are having historic wildfires, temperatures, all sorts of things. You have predator control rules being put in place. Like, what is the actual impact that we're seeing with hunters in those different environments? And that's where I think, man, the faster we can get this into people's hands, not because it's like, hey, we're going to all of a sudden start proving to people, or it's going to overturn an election, or it's going to do that. But it's like, hey, the power of most critical components of human history. That's why we document stories. That's why we continue to tell the same stories. That's why we, it's like our story is important. Your story is important, and we can't discount our stories. So like, I think it's almost selfish when people like right now, it's like, hey, I don't want to use the app because, like it might take away from a hunter, might do this. Like maybe get beyond yourself a little bit, and like, hey, don't be selfish here, because like what we might actually be able to do here might be able to help contribute with conservation in a way that like we've never had a tool that's been able to do this. And I'm really excited about some of what those what is our collective story, not our individual story, but like what happens when we start collecting our stories in a way that we can tell it and repackage it. Having conversations with the guys like Robbie from Blood Origins, having conversations with people like Hunter Nation, being able to connect with organizations like Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. Like, I'm originally from Oklahoma, and I've seen some of their emails about the declining turkey populations in Oklahoma. And it's like, I want those types of stories to like start to actually integrate with our conservation efforts. And, like the state is only able to pay so many biologists and people to study and track the movement of animals. But it's like, what if we had a way, and this gets into real dangerous territory, cause it's like, we're not doing GPS and data tracking of like the specifics of location, but it's like, but we know we're narrowing it down to a state. Like when you post something, it says your hunt's from Oregon or your hunt's from Colorado. Like it's a macro study of what's potentially happening in a, and it's like, obviously the more scientific data would be, you want to scale that down into the finest of details,
Correct.
like into which unit, into which basin. But we're not really going that direction. But it's like, we want the collective story of hunters around the country to start painting a different narrative for, the public perception and what it actually does to benefit all of wildlife, instead of like, you're just out there killing animals. It's like, no, like, our story is important. And I think it has the ability collectively to make a difference, for all of us.
Well, I think that's pretty cool, man. And if let's go ahead and wrap this thing up here, but if we're going to have people get a hold of you or go to the app, give them your Instagram handle, your email, and give them one more chance to find it online again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me on and letting me participate. But you can go on Facebook or Instagram, Hunt League. Just type in HUNTLEAGUE. Hunt League will find us on either. I will give you fair warning. I'm not much of a social media or poster, so you're not going to get there and be like impressed or like, dude, this guy's social media stuff is awesome. But it's going to grow. And what we'll start doing is, as people start contributing content in the app, we'll start reposting, we'll start using those platforms to kind of share your stories on those platforms. So that's going to be what I'm kind of excited about. Like, so we can start saying like, here's Garrett Weaver, like, to check out Garrett Weaver's hunt from this year, go get the Hunt League app, and, you can actually view the details of this story. And I can post a picture of the buck or bull or bear or whatever that you're holding, and kind of redirect people. So it's a great way to kind of celebrate the different individual accomplishments of everybody within the community. But that's the Hunt League, Instagram, Facebook. I think you can also do that on YouTube. Most of the YouTube content right now is just kind of tutorial videos on like, how do I actually use this app? Because it does a lot of things. So you need to spend a little bit of time. Don't download it and then not look at it until the day you go to the woods. It's like every piece of equipment that you have, like, learn a little bit, learn how to download an offline map, like, practice it. So do your offline maps, do what you need to do a little bit of the homework, watch some of the tutorial videos. It'll really help you out. But if you're an iPhone guy, go to iOS, download Hunt League. If you're an Android guy, go to huntleague.com.
Okay.
And you can sign up for the beta test. And otherwise, if you want to email me, support@huntleague.com, or my personal one is jnew, JNEW @huntleague.com. Hit me up there, grill me with your questions and all the reasons why you don't want to use the app and you hate this idea. Like, you're scared that I'm going to give away your location. It's like, I don't even see that. Like, it's all stored on our, like, we have an encrypted server with Amazon that it's on AWS, and that's where everything lives. And nobody's accessing anybody's information. The only information that gets shared is what you choose to share. And by default, we have it set up where you're not giving away location. You have to intentionally be sharing your location data if it's ever going to get out, and it will never get out publicly. It's only going to get out within the people that you specifically say, I want to share this with. So
cool. Well, I appreciate you,
works.
Explaining it and igniting a fun competitive side in me, and I'm going to mess around with the app. And bear season starts August 1st, so I'll try testing it out during bear season, because that's a really like low pressure. If it walks off kind of thing. I'll find another one. But me and my buddy Brad, I told my buddy Brad that he needs to download this thing because he'd be top 3 in like 2 days. He spends every waking moment off work in the woods. Yeah. He just actually posted pictures of bears. He called me right before this. Like, hey, I got 2 more bears located. One's a shooter. And I was like, sweet. Like, we're both just chomping at the bit for August 1st to get here. And so, yeah, I'll be using. I don't know about him. He's not much of a poster or anything like that. But yeah, I'll be using it here very shortly, and look forward to maybe people's recommendations on what we should call the league and stuff. I'm curious to hear.
That's going to be fun, man. I can't wait for that. Like, that is going to be so exciting for me to get to follow that journey.
Yeah.
Because I listen to you guys, I hear you guys talk about it. I'm getting my expertise watching, tuning videos that you post on YouTube about like how to get my bow set up. So it's like, you guys have already contributed to my hunting success. And I'm like, this is going to be so fun now, getting to watch you guys compete and see how your hunts are going. So as a consumer myself, like, man, I can't wait to see the hunts and scouts and things that you guys post this year. It's going to be a ton of fun.
Right on. Well, we'll have to definitely check back in, and maybe if I can get a podcast with all the participants in our little league, we'll have to have you there as like, well, no, we can't do that, but we can do this, so we don't get out of control.
I love it. If we need to change the rules of the league midway through, we'll keep it a little flexible.
Yeah. If beer drinking was part of it, I'd probably be pretty high in the league. But you don't want to. You don't want to
add points for that.
Yeah. But all right, man. Well, I appreciate it, and we'll be catching up here real soon.
Yeah, Garrett, thank you so much.
Anytime.
Look forward to it. Have a good one.
See ya. All right, guys, that's this episode of the podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Jared, for coming onto the show, and hopefully you guys got something out of it. I think this is going to be a really cool way for listeners and followers and subscribers to engage with all of these content creators in a way that we never have been able to before, and have a lot of fun along the way, and hopefully help folks learn something and maybe shed a light on how much we actually do struggle throughout the season before we fill tags. A lot of you guys only see the highlights, and hopefully you're not comparing our highlights versus your guys' lows. And last year I had a lot of lows. So there's that aspect of it, and I think that's going to be really cool and really help people figure out exactly what we go through to find success. So as always, guys, I appreciate you for listening, and be sure to go join the league. It's going to be the League of Content Creators League, and be sure to search for it on there on Hunt League app, and I will see you guys on there. Add me as a friend. Love to follow you back, and we'll talk soon on there.